everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Solie, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, another outstanding card.
Hey, guys, and welcome back to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. I am your host, Ray Russell, and this week we head back to late great 1981 and Georgia Championship Wrestling, which can only mean one thing. Our guest this week, guest co-host, is none other than the one and the only Mr. Jammie Ward. Jammie, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Ray. I've survived the recent heat wave, and I'm ready to get into a new heat wave with you tonight.
Oh, my
Talking
God.
Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, driving up and down those roads, delivering the mail, 100-degree weather. No, thank you.
It was a nasty couple days. We got a little break today, but I'm speechless on what I went through the last couple days.
I can only imagine. I mean, it was about 100 here with humidity for the last week straight, so I'm happy. It's only 80 today, so I'm okay with that.
Beautiful. Yeah, we were, my truck said 100 and 102.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
I saw that picture you posted, yeah. Wow, crazy stuff. I'm just happy you're doing okay, Jammie.
Survived this week, and then it's vacation time for a week.
I don't know when summer technically ends. I never really pay attention to that. I go by the weather. But we're still here in the summer, I believe, in the mid-September summer of 1981, if I'm not mistaken, in Georgia Championship Wrestling. So it's got to be kind of hot still down there in that area, I would imagine.
We should get 1 week in the summer and 1 week in the fall this podcast.
That sounds about right. So we're going to continue on with the year of 81, guys. But first, before we get back into things, last week you referenced a brand by the name of Stubbies. Kevin Von Erich rocking a Stubbies t-shirt. Well, a quick Google search later, Jammie, and I have an answer for everybody. What was Stubbies of Australia? And apparently Stubbies was a very popular brand of shorts and maybe some other attire as well over there in Australia. So Kevin Von Erich rocking only the nicest of quality products.
Sounds like a present Jim Barnett may have given him.
It does, doesn't it? It absolutely does. So maybe Jim Barnett wore that prior to Kevin. Kevin ran out of clothes and Jim said, hey, you can borrow mine. I don't know. We won't get too deep into that, especially this early in the program. But
no, I'll just say what a nice guy Jim Barnett was.
Is that what you were saying? Okay, that's what I meant too.
He loved Australia. He
did. He better. He made an ass ton of money over there.
Yeah, now, I don't know if Buddy Fuller enjoyed Australia as much as Jim Barnett did. But
didn't sound like it, according to Bob Roop, anyway. Yeah, they didn't last that long. About 3 months, I think, they had in the business over there. Before they sold out to that sucker, Tony Coloni, but that's another story for another day. We're here in Georgia now, guys. Back to 1981, we've been having a blast. 8 months in the books. We're now in the month of September, the latter half of September at that, guys. But before we get rolling, just a quick refresher of what happened at the end of last episode we did here, Jammie, with Georgia 81. We closed out the show. We opened and closed the show with Omni cards, and the last card took place September 12th at the Atlanta, Georgia Omni. And the 3 top matches, we're going to go back in time and relive those. It was title for title, if you guys don't recall. The Masked Superstar putting his national title up on the line against Tommy Rich and the Georgia heavyweight title. Well, match saw the Superstar walk out with both belts, now a dual champion for the time being. Superstar, the Georgia and national champion. Also, at the time, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Dusty Rhodes, scoring a win over Harley Race in their last tangle for the belt. And Michael Hayes teaming with Kevin Von Erich, scoring a win over the Georgia Tag Team Champions Superfly, Snuka, and Terry Gordy on a count-out when the champions took the belts and went home.
Yeah, and that was actually Snuka being the brains of the operation there,
yes,
convincing Gordy to take off to fight another day.
Let me tell you something, people out there in TV Wonderland. The Superfly growing some smarts here this week, pulling Gordy out of the ring, and even Terry said, you know what? We'll live to fight another day. Still the tag team champions, taking the count-out loss, but retaining the titles in the process, guys, as we roll on to Sunday, September 13th, Marietta, Georgia, the Cobb County Civic Center. Don't have any results, so we continue on. Another show taking place the very same day in Chattanooga at the Memorial Auditorium. Going to see Brian Blair against Rick Ferreira. Kevin Von Erich teaming with Steve-O against Brian St. John and the French Angel. Terry Gordy going up against George Wells. It's Jimmy Snuka versus Michael Hayes. And Tommy Rich and the Masked Superstar in the main event of the night. Now, I don't have results for that show, but a nice little lineup.
Oh, yeah, very solid card. I mean, Ric Flair and Blair just to start it off as a very solid match. And George Wells, who's really coming into his own up against Gordy.
Boy,
that was a fantastic one.
Wells been very impressive here in 1981. And based on the way Wells has been moving around the ring and how strong he is, and knowing the way Gordy bumps, you're right. That could have been a very fun match.
Oh, absolutely.
So we go on, guys. September 14th, Augusta, Georgia, Bell Auditorium. Steve-O over Professor Sonoda. Brian Blair going to a draw with Iron Mike Sharp. It's Kevin Von Erich over the French Angel. Tor Kamata downing Bruno Sammartino Jr. And Jimmy Snuka scoring a win in a $7,500, got to be realistic, Battle Royal. Jimmy Snuka in the ring with the likes of Terry Gordy, Tommy Rich, Kevin Von Erich, the Superstar, Tor Kamata, Mike Sharp, George Wells, Steve-O, my God, Michael Hayes, the French Angel, Professor Sonoda, Bruno Jr., and Brian Blair. So something tells me a few matches, the results are missing here because we see some headliners in this Battle Royal, and I don't have results for them.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because they wouldn't just come there to be in the Battle Royal and go.
Right. Yeah, but Jimmy Snuka getting the big win there over all of the talent mentioned. So that'd be a fun night there in Augusta, guys, as we roll on Tuesday, September 15th, Macon, Georgia, Coliseum. No results, though, Jamie, so we'll continue on to the following day, the 16th of September, Columbus, Georgia, Memorial Auditorium. Brian Blair over Rick Ferreira. Steve-O defeating Professor Sonoda. It's Tor Kamata again over Bruno Jr., Wrestling 2 here this time around. He's going to score a win over Iron Mike Sharp. Wildfire Tommy Rich defeating the dual champion, Masked Superstar, on a disqualification. And the main event going to see Michael Hayes and Kevin Von Erich over the Georgia champs Gordy and Snuka by DQ. So again, the heels will retain.
Yeah, never let it be said Mike Sharp takes advantage of the older generation.
No, putting over Wrestling 2.
Wrestling, that's a tough one for me right there. I love Grumpy too, and I love, Iron Mike Sharp Jr., who's, number 4 on my depth list right now. I guess 2's probably number 5.
We got to throw together a Jamie Ward top 10.
That's a tough one right there.
So lots more towns heading into the weekend. I don't have results, unfortunately, for these, but wanted to mention them anyway. Athens, Georgia, September 17th at the IJ Sports Center, JJ Sports, I'm not sure. Thursday, also September 17th in Nashville, Georgia. There's a Nashville, Georgia at the elementary school gym, not even a high school gym, Jamie.
You found a West Point, Georgia last week, so why not? It seems like Georgia copied off all this other states.
It's possible. I don't think anybody from Georgia is going to appreciate that comment, but it is what it is. As we roll on.
Mississippi stole Philadelphia from Pennsylvania, so I guess everything is fair game.
Just ask the plowboy. As we continue on, September 18th, Friday night, Talladega, Alabama. I wonder if Bob Holly was there for the high school gym show. Don't have the results, but very interesting. Heading off back into Alabama. Before we move back to the weekend, and you know what that means, it's time for TV tapings. WTBS Studios, Saturday morning, September 19th, Atlanta, Georgia, guys. Hosted, as always, by Gordon Soley. And we learned right away, right out of the gate, you flip it on, Jamie 605, we learned that we have a brand new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. But it's not Harley Race. It didn't happen at the Omni, but rather in Kansas City, Kansas, not Missouri, as was pointed out to me repeatedly online. Nope, in Kansas City, Kansas, of all places, Dusty Rhodes losing the NWA World Heavyweight title to the Nature Boy Ric Flair. For those keeping score, this is Ric Flair's very first reign as the NWA champion.
And I believe well-deserved at this point because he was tearing up the Mid-Atlantic promotion at this point. He's been on Georgia for the better part of 2 years, coming and going, just making appearances. And it's his time. It's the Ric Flair time right now.
Yeah, by leaps and bounds, you look around at all of the talent out there. If Dusty Rhodes had to lose the title, this is the go-to. I mean, not only has Ric Flair got it in the ring, but he's certainly got it on the mic, and he's got it, just a look. Right? The robes and just everything about him. Ric Flair certainly exudes world championship material at this point. You can't argue that, whether you're a Flair fan or not in 2024. Ric Flair was ready to go in 1981. And again, Dusty's reign, fairly short for an NWA world title run, but at the same time, if you were going to take the belt off Dusty, Ric Flair was certainly ready. And we've talked about this in the past. And Ric Flair's mentioned this, I do believe, that maybe he was supposed to get the win the world title way back when. What was that, March, April, whatever that was.
The day before the Tommy Rich title change.
Yes.
He wrestled Harley Race in the Omni to a 60-minute draw. And it really looked at that time, when you're watching the TV each week, that he was going to be the one to take the belt from Race at that point, but it didn't work out that way. And then even with this title change, we did have Flair on back-to-back weeks on television along with Dusty. So it was kind of telegraphed what was going to happen here.
Right. And we can go back to those Buck Robley interviews as well, where he was talking about being the booker at the time, and he walked in and was told that he had to go inform Ric Flair that he wasn't really getting the world title that he was promised on that day. So it's kind of interesting how that all played out. Tommy Rich winds up winning the world title for 5 days, and Ric Flair's reign as the world champion gets postponed. But he is the champion now, guys, and we can't take that away from him. One of many championship reigns for the Nature Boy.
But that's not even the most exciting news that's going to happen on this show. Go ahead, Ray. Tell the people.
You better believe it, Jamie. No, sir. It just gets better from there, because also this week on the program, we're going to hear the winner of the Most Popular Wrestler Award. So we've been voting for weeks. Everybody's been sending in those postcards, I hope. You voted for your the most popular wrestler, and he's going to be announced here this week on the program. I can't wait.
I can't wait either, because we know my special man, Grumpy Grandpa 2, was way out in the lead. So
he was.
I'm expecting him to be presented with a little trophy with a little mask on the guy, so he can put it up on his mantle. Yep. It's going to be great.
He said it would look great there up on his mantle. The trophy we've seen brought out here week after week on the program. Grumpy Grandpa 2 has been in the lead for weeks now in the running. But we did learn on the last episode of TV that some other names are starting to catch up. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires there as we kick off the program. Gordon runs down some big information there. And then the Masked Superstar going to pop up here. Masked Superstar said he told Tommy Rich that he would take his Georgia title, and he did. It has prestige, but it has a regional feel to it, being a Georgia title. So what Superstar plans to do is retire the Georgia belt, and the national title will now be the focal point, the top title in the nation, right here on cable TV, but perhaps not the world.
Yeah, I wonder if this was actually a plan when they first developed the title, a year or so ago.
You mean to unify, or to make it Georgia's world title belt?
To make it Georgia's world title belt.
Okay.
And slowly get away from the Georgia. Like when the Freebirds come in, the Georgia tag titles become the national tag titles. And it's not until Steve-O, Mr. Personality, and Ted DiBiase win the belts do they refer to them as the Georgia tag titles again.
Well, leave it to Steve-O to downgrade a title.
No, I think that was beyond Steve-O. That's not his fault. He was a tri-champion at the time, but we won't talk. But they had originally invented the national title. I believe Austin Idol won a title like back in April of 1980. And then they kind of just forgot about it. And then they had Jack Briscoe win the title, was it in early October, and then had the Stomper beat him for the national title. So right. I wonder if that was kind of the plan at that time. And then they decided, let's just keep the two separate belts for now.
And it makes sense because it was right around that time when they implemented that the booking changed several times after that. And now Ole's back in the area, and they're talking about the Georgia title sounding too regional here in this promo, and thus the national title sounds more big league because they are a national program.
Right. It's much more fitting for Georgia Championship Wrestling. And that's why, if you want to even look forward another year, we're going to be World Championship Wrestling, because the aspirations of taking Georgia Championship Wrestling, whatever you want to call it, nationwide, even with Barnett and Ole, I think it's already starting to cook.
So Superstar here then mentions that Ric Flair recently defeated Dusty Rhodes for the NWA World title. Gordon let us in on that one, and he points out that he had upcoming title matches scheduled against the American Dream, and now they're going to be against the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Wow, that would be something else. Superstar may very well be a man very soon, Jamie, with 3 belts.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but taking a sneak peek forward, Superstar does get 2 title matches, so he's not lying.
No, that's a pretty damn cool deal, too. So Superstar going to walk away from the promo briefly. He will return, guys. When you hear an extra voice here, that's who it is in the background chiming in. But first, Gordon's solely going to announce the latest addition to the Georgia roster, the former Oakland Raider himself. Here he is, Otis Sistrunk.
Well, I want to take a moment right now to introduce to you perhaps the gentleman who will go down in sports history as the greatest athlete ever to ball, you name it. Originally from Columbus, Georgia. Well, I want to take a moment right now to introduce to you perhaps the gentleman who will go down in sports history as the greatest athlete ever to come from this great state of Georgia. He is originally from Columbus, Georgia, now makes his home at Virginia Beach. And when you think of the name of the Oakland Raiders, this name became synonymous with the Oakland Raiders and the outstanding teams that they have consistently had. It's my pleasure to have with me right now Otis Sistrunk, and welcome aboard, sir.
How you doing?
Here's a man who's 6'5", 275 pounds, and as I said, of course, just a tremendous all-around athlete. While attending Spencer High School in Columbus, he was in football, he was in track, in basketball, you name it. This man is just a fantastic athlete, and of course has wrestled basically all of his life, but certainly welcome back to the state of Georgia, and may I congratulate you on an outstanding career.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to have you here, and of course I know that...
Listen, why don't you just take some advice from me? You know, I know he's a very, very well-versed man. You seem to be almost intelligent, Otis. You're a very, very tough football player, but there's not 11 people at one time in this sport. This is a very, very brutal sport. Now, you come out here, you look nice. He's got a nice 3-piece suit on. You ought to get rid of this little goofy hat.
Wait a minute now.
And get yourself straightened up. And get to the fact that you are not a professional wrestler. You're a football player.
Well, I apologize for the intrusion, Mr. Sistrunk. Frankly, I have always admired you, and I know the sports fans throughout the entire world have always admired you.
Well, I tell you, Superstar, I did some amateur wrestling myself. But one of these days, I might have to meet Superstar in that ring out there. So you better watch out.
Well, a fair warning, I would think, right now from Otis Sistrunk, and hopefully we'll be seeing him in action a little bit later on, but... do hang in. Perhaps we'll get a chance to chat with you. Easy, my friend. We'll get a chance to chat with you a little bit farther on. Otis Sistrunk, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a pleasure to have him on with us.
Thank you.
Wow, that was something else. Otis Sistrunk out here, Jamie, in a brown suit with a butterfly collar, matching cowboy hat, got to give him that, from Columbus, Georgia originally, but he played, of course, for the Oakland Raiders. Don't know if you remember him, Jamie, but I love.
Oh yeah, I got to see Otis Sistrunk play football.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was a kid, and he was on the John Madden Oakland Raiders team.
Yeah, he was a
one
big
that
deal.
won the Super Bowl and beat Minnesota.
Yeah, a couple-time Pro Bowler, man. He was. When you talk about Raiders from that era, that is certainly a name that would come up immediately. But Sistrunk back in his home state of Georgia now, looking to become a professional wrestler now that NFL is behind him. And I love right out of the gate, the first thing he does is he thanks Gordon for being here this week.
Yes, I caught that. And Gordon gave him the eyes.
I thought I was on the sauce, brother. So Otis Sistrunk right out of the gate. Well, 0 for 1, but we'll see what happens here. We heard the promo. Masked Superstar going to interrupt, telling Otis that you were successful in the NFL, but there's not 11 people on your team here in professional wrestling. It's one-on-one. Warning Otis about taking up pro wrestling as his next profession. Bill Eadie, the Superstar, then knocking Otis's hat off. You guys didn't hear that here in the audio, but man, what a sight to see. I mean, it was so abrupt, so quickly. Otis just introduced to the fans, and immediately Superstar knocking his hat off. But Otis just smiling away, picking the hat back up and putting it back on his head. I really didn't really understand that response from Sistrunk, but he says he very well could wind up in the ring with the Superstar very soon, as Gordon thinks the Superstar made a slight error in judgment.
What a great segment this was. I mean,
what an introduction.
Oh, yeah, what an introduction. I mean, Otis looks more like me with the way he's built with that.
Yeah.
I forget how long he was actually out of football at this point, but that football body's gone.
Yeah, but I loved it from beginning to end. He felt so out of place, and he's not looking at the camera. He's smiling through the whole segment. I can't say he's not taking it seriously, but He's getting his hat knocked off, and instead of getting upset, he's just smiling right through that. But he gets his key points across that, hey, I might end up in the ring with this guy someday, the superstar. And I love Bill Eadie telling him, you're in the wrong profession. It's one-on-one.
Overall, that's a great interview segment. And if anyone has the time, find it on YouTube. It's at the very beginning of the show, so you don't have to watch the entire show, but watch this segment. It's priceless.
As we head off to the ring for our very first match this week, guys, Australia Tag Team match. That's Australian Rules, which is basically your typical tag team match. It's George Wells and Bruno Sammartino Jr. taking on the likes of Iron Mike Sharp and Izzy Slapowitz. Sharp and Sammartino going to start this matchup. The babyface is making some quick tags early on. Giant overhead power toss slam by Bruno Jr. on Izzy Slapowitz as the match continues on. Gordon's solely going to mention that Bruno Sr. is looking to retire as he apparently re-aggravated his neck injury from Stan Hansen several years earlier. I got to ask you, Jammie, off the top of your head, was Bruno Sr. working in 1981?
He was about to retire. He was about to have his last match against George Animal Steel in the Meadowlands in October.
Ah, see?
Yes, he was still working whenever Bruno felt like working. I mean, it wasn't that often, but he was working here and there.
So Gordon talking bullshit and just happens to be right here, or did he do a little digging?
Maybe Bruno Jr. told him. I doubt because up to now, Gordon has mentioned that his father was the legendary Bruno Sammartino, but like never said he was a former world champion. Again, WWF, NWA, I get it, but he could have put Bruno over even more than he did.
Yeah.
And he didn't. So maybe, Bruno or Gordon was back there catching his, little morning stuff and overheard, David and Steve-O talking and about his daddy getting ready to retire and decided to throw it out there.
Yeah, I'll use that line. As Gordon, though, putting over Bruno Sr., he's been in the business for a while. He's re-aggravated that injury from Stan Hansen, who is more often than not an NWA guy by this point. But yeah, we go back to the ring here. It's Bruno Jr., but it's George Wells, his tag team partner, who is so impressive, so solid, so fluid, well put together, looking great. I really, truly have a newfound appreciation for George Wells after watching him here in this 81 run.
Yeah, he's come a long way, even from that, what was it, May, early June, when he's teaming with Butch Reed, and they're taking on the Freebirds, and then Gordy and Snuka. He's come a long way, and he deserved to get a push. I mean, he had the look. It just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know either. I wasn't there. I don't know if there's a good reason or not, but George Wells looking good here on TV, as it seems. But the heels, they finally managed to take over on Sammartino, albeit briefly. Izzy Slapowitz going to eat a knee lift and a nice power slam by Bruno Jr. Mike Sharp trying a double leg takedown and puts his feet on the ropes to steal the win here over Wells, but to no avail. The match continues on, and it looks like Sharp trying for a crossbody thingy, and maybe George Wells is supposed to turn it into a power slam, something, I'm not really sure, but the entire spot gets botched. But the match continues on. Izzy Slapowitz and David Sammartino back inside, and a nasty back suplex from Sammartino as Wells tags back in, lands the flying tackle on Izzy, gonna finally score the win. Match goes 9 minutes and 20 seconds.
What a flying tackle that was. I mean, he must have jumped 3/4 across the ring to
about 6 feet, right?
Nail with it. Oh, yeah. Well, with the ring's 10 feet. Yeah, so at least 6 to 8 feet he flew across.
Yeah, it's crazy, though, to see a match go nearly 10 minutes here on TV, which should be, I don't want to call it a squash, but damn near should have been anyway. Mike Sharp in there, though, so maybe not. But post-match, I wrote, what is this? Mike Sharp getting some of his heat back. It was his partner that did the job, Jammie. So Mike Sharp back in the ring, backdropping Sammartino over the top rope to the studio floor. And then from there, Sharp going to lock in Wells and that shoulder breaker, over the shoulder breaker that he did. So Mike Sharp delivering that Canadian shoulder breaker to George Wells. Meanwhile, he had dumped Sammartino to the floor over the top rope, mind you, which is even more devastating. So Mike Sharp basically taking out the entire babyface team for a short period of time anyway.
I'm thinking Sharp was legitimately upset after his match. And maybe it had to do with that crossbody block that got all botched up. But he did a number on both David and George Wells after the match. Going to take my shot at Mike, unfortunately.
Yeah, go ahead.
You never see the enhancement talent get the upper hand in a post-match thing like this. And I don't remember if it was the week before or the week after this. Mike has a little thing after the match again. So I don't know if he's unhappy with his push. Somebody's taking liberties with him in the ring and he's just not going to take it anymore. But there's definitely something going on with Mike Sharp at this point.
Yeah, it was very uncharacteristic, both of the position he was in the match as well as Mike Sharp himself. He's not really somebody to go into business for himself post-match. We've seen a few guys try that, usually the other side not really having any of it. They hit him a few times, they cleared the ring into the match. But Mike Sharp taking it out on both guys. But again, what was more unusual was he was just coming at them throwing punches. He was, he literally backdropped David to the floor, and then he locked George Wells into the full Nelson. So he had a meaning behind this attack. And there's not really any follow-up to this, so it was indeed very interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what happened when they got back to the locker room. I wonder if there's a little pushing and shoving going on back there.
I don't know, man. We'll have to pay attention.
Because, Wells didn't look very happy about it afterwards.
See, I didn't pay attention. I wish I had. I'm going to wait till we get to the Omni. I don't remember the matches. I'm going to hope that Sharp's in the ring with at least one of those guys by the time we get there, but we'll have to wait and see for just a little bit longer, guys. Right now, though, we get another new face here on the TV show, but we did see him in action from an old VTR tape from the AWA territory. I'm talking about Ray the Crippler Stevens is actually in studio this week. Going to cut an interview here with Gordon the Crippler. He says he's here for championships. He's held pretty much all of them across the world, but he's here for more. He's a former 4-time World Tag Team Champion, but he was never the World Heavyweight Champion because, well, the champions, they never want to put the title up against them. Not Dusty, not Harley. They all ran the other direction, says the Crippler here. Ray says he doubts that the lady-looking Ric Flair will give him a title shot. I wrote lady-looking? Wonder what he would have called Dusty Rhodes.
Well, what's very interesting here now, here's two heels that are taking shots at the new World Heavyweight Champion.
Well, I don't think they like the changes in the business, the changes in the looks of the talent. And maybe there's a little jealousy there because these guys, they've seen better days.
Well, very true, but still, we got heels taking shots at somebody that's going to wind up being a heel. It's just kind of, you would expect him to take a shot at the Dream because he's the Dream, baby.
Still wonder what he would have called him.
But taking shots at Ric Flair, maybe they didn't know what they were going to do with Flair. Well, we know George anyway.
Well, we knew Ray Stevens wasn't getting the world title, that's for sure.
No. But still, hey, I would have liked to have seen a match, even with Stevens this point in his career. I'd have liked to have seen a Stevens-Flair match. They probably had one or two in Mid-Atlantic because he's leaving Mid-Atlantic at this point. Stevens had. So maybe their paths crossed in Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, it's very possible without going back and looking at all the results. But yeah, you're absolutely right in regards to, it would still be nice to see a matchup between Flair and Stevens, a couple of different generations, but two of the best in their prime for sure. As Stevens also mentioning in this promo that his finisher, the off the top rope bombs away, has been outlawed here in the Georgia promotion, which is kind of interesting, but that's all right. We'll continue on with that as the show goes on. Now, guys, I did upload this episode of TV, like all the episodes in recent weeks, to my YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I was informed by YouTube that I was not permitted to air one of the matches. It was owned and claimed by the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. WWE apparently used this upcoming matchup on one of their DVDs or Blu-rays or something along those lines. And if you guys know anything about that, that means you are not permitted to air it on your YouTube channel. So I did remove this from there so when we talk about this, Jammie, people are going to go, what? I didn't see this match. Well, I was able to, so I'm just going to give you guys the blow-by-blow here. It was actually Jerry the King Lawler coming down for a matchup here, taking on Rick Thor. And the King decked out all in orange, supporting his Cleveland Browns for the new season there of 1981. Trivia, Jammie, do you know who the Browns drafted in 1981 that went on to become a professional wrestler?
Oh, that went on to become a professional wrestler. I do not, without really thinking about it in depth.
I'm going to give you a one-word hint, and we'll see if you can guess it. Damn!
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, Cleveland Browns drafted Ron Simmons in 1981. He was cut before the season started. He went on to go play, I believe, for the CFL after that. But
really?
Ron Simmons was drafted by the Browns.
Again, I had no real idea. I just thought he got injured and never got drafted in the NFL. That's what I thought. I had no idea he didn't make it. I mean, how dominant he was in college football.
Oh, there could have been more to it, absolutely. I don't know the whole story. I wish, I didn't even know that at the time. I wish I could have asked Ron that when we were down at the GrappleCon. Have a couple stories about that or whatever. But unfortunately, I was just looking, I saw Lawler out here in the orange. I know he was a huge Browns fan. I said, you know what? I'm going to go look at the team in 81. And sure enough, as soon as I did, the first thing that stuck out to me was Ron Simmons. And I had to double check to make sure it wasn't another Ron Simmons. And nope, sure enough, it was indeed the Ron Simmons. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, yeah, I had no idea.
So, but we do get the King down here in Georgia for the TV, and he's taking on Rick Thor, who tries to get cute with the King early on, throw some punches, but Lawler going to retaliate with some punches of his own. I guess you could say Rick Thor fucked around and found out here, Jamie, as the King going to finish off the match, not with the fist drop, but rather an elbow drop off the middle rope. Going to score the win here, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. And I wrote, it's so weird that Jerry Lawler works this TV match. Obviously it's recorded Saturday morning, so he's not down there or up there at WMC recording for Memphis. But at the same time, no promo here this week. No Jerry Lawler interviews. He's not working the Omni. He's not working any of the other house shows. Really weird that Jerry Lawler just stops by for a match here on TBS.
Must have been something going on behind the scenes that day. Maybe Jerry Jarrett sent him down to do a little schmoozing with Ole or something. Because, I mean, going back to the war in Atlanta, Jarrett's always been in and out of Atlanta since then. So maybe it had something to do with that. Maybe they were working on another partnership, which is going to happen 2 or 3 times more after this.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of them last very long. But yeah, they continue to try to work out deals there between Georgia and the Memphis territory. But just so odd to see Jerry Lawler here and not even given any interview time, even just a minute or so. So Jerry Lawler scores the win, and we don't see him again for the rest of the TV.
It's kind of reminiscent of when Austin Idol came in back in late May, June.
Oh yeah, good call.
Did the one show, and then we didn't see Austin again. I mean, you and I at the time thought maybe they gave Austin the job just because he was just previously with the Outlaw group there.
Right.
And he was going to come in and work some shows, but no, he just came in for the one TV taping.
But I think they gave Austin at least some promo time, Dahlin. I think Austin at least got to speak.
I forget if he did or not, but what it is. Lawler will be back in a few months, so no fears.
Not sweating that, guys. As we continue on, some other new faces in recent weeks include the Great Mephisto and his man Tor Kamata. They're going to come out here for another promo here this week. And he says it was just a few years ago, the Mephisto, he brought Abdullah the Butcher to the United States. That's his story, and he's sticking to it. He says Abdullah has since went his own way, taken up the Western ways of the world. But now Mephisto, he has Tor Kamata to counteract his former charge, Abdullah the Butcher. And these guys going to get it on fairly soon at the Omni.
Yeah, Mephisto found out that Abby opened up a ribs and Chinese food restaurant.
That's what happened.
Was very disappointed in Abdullah at that point.
What are you doing, Abby?
But you know what? Tor Kamata, here's a guy that has bounced around. He has gotten, the foreign menace push here or there. Just a year ago, he was in the WWF, didn't get any further than mid-card.
Right.
Wrestled Pat Patterson, I believe, on the Showdown at Shea of Zbyszko Bruno. But I'll tell you what, they're doing a good job with him here because he actually looks like a legit killer in this role.
And you never know what he's going to do when he gets in the ring. That's for sure. As speaking of the ring, we head back to the ring. Oh, it's your favorite, or one of your favorites, one of the 75 guys you love on your list there. I'm talking about Grumpy Grandpa, Mr. Wrestling number 2, and he's in the ring this week.
He's number 5. He's number 5
number
at this
5
moment in time.
Okay, I
gotta make sure we have it.
Try to keep track of that. Wrestling 2 taking on Tomahawk Thompson. As the bell sounds, it's straight no-nonsense grappling here. And this one from the Masked Man, leading to a cross arm breaker. And that's going to do it. No screwing around this week. Grumpy Grandpa 2 scoring the win, 3 minutes and 36 seconds, as Gordon Soley thinks he heard something pop during that arm breaker. Boy, I hope so. I don't want to see Tomahawk Thompson on my TV again.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. But what a great finisher by 2. I mean, we know it's setting up for something else, but I believe you and I talked about this last show. You don't have to use the $1 million knee lift every time to win a match.
No, you shouldn't have to use the same finisher every week. And
Triple H has guys today starting to do that, has them winning with different finishers. So this is great to see, too, with this armbar. And if anything, 2 kind of wrestling a little heelish here.
Yeah, he's been aggressive in the last few weeks, and it continues. And I wasn't sure with that cross arm breaker. The first time he used it, his opponent, an enhancement guy, I can't remember who it was, they seemingly pissed him off. So when he did that, I thought, well, maybe this guy had it coming, but we're going to see 2 use that more often than not in the upcoming weeks and matches in the ring here on TV. And yeah, you're right. He's been very aggressive, and I guess you can't really call that heelish, working snug and trying to get a win. But at the same time, like I said, a much more aggressive, grumpy grandpa too, since returning here to the Georgia territory over the summer. As we continue on, speaking of aggressive, the Georgia Tag Team Champions, Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka, out here for a promo. They talk about the upcoming matchup in the Omni with the fence around the ring, Jammie. They're referring to the rematch. It's going to be Gordy and Snuka taking on Michael Hayes and Kevin Von Erich inside a steel cage. There must be a winner.
If I'm from Atlanta, as soon as I hear this announced, I'm headed down to the Omni, to the box office to buy a ticket, just for that steel cage alone. You don't tell me the rest of the matches. I'm there for that.
Did it ever bother you, even in hindsight, whenever they would refer to the cage matches as a fence? It just kind of made it a lower level match for me whenever I would read that in the old ads, the 60s, the 70s. I get it was different times, but we're moving into the 80s now, and Terry Gordy referring to, they're going to put a fence around the ring, Michael, and I'm going to get you in the Omni.
To me, and not to offend any people from the South, but to me, that was just Southern talk. How many times did they use a baseball bat and just call it a ball bat?
Well, that's true.
I just figured it was something Southern, when I was watching back then.
Well, we got Gordy hard selling the entire matchup because Jimmy Snuka just standing and smiling, waiting for his opportunity at the Omni. Brother.
Snuka is a man of action, not of words. Okay. However, that action also, we better not go there. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll save that for another program. As we continue on, though, we go back to the ring. Handicap matchup. This is unusual. It's a special 2-on-1 match. Going to see the team of Ken Hall and Eddie Dean take on Ray the Crippler Stevens. I wrote, well, based on the size of his opponents, maybe this is fair. Hall and Dean, not very large guys, but Ray Stevens, he's not so big either.
Yeah, nice way to introduce Stevens, though. Have him come out and make him bloodthirsty and beat 2 guys at the same time.
I could be wrong, but I swear I thought I saw Stevens work a couple of guys like this, even up there in New York, in that early 80s run that he had. I could be wrong, but I feel like I saw that there, and I thought the same thing. Like, why is Ray Stevens? Because we're used to the monsters. Maybe a Brody, of course a Bundy, John Studd, some bigger guy get in the ring with 2 men and tear them apart. It would make sense. It was believable. But here with Ray Stevens, just a consummate professional wrestler. And yeah, he could be aggressive. Don't get me wrong. And again, these guys aren't exactly the largest, so it was believable. But I just thought it was odd to put Ray Stevens, especially at this age, in the ring with 2 guys. But they're trying to make him a mauler, that's for sure.
I had no problems with it. I mean, George is going to do this, I believe, a couple more times with different people. I guess just their way of getting somebody over who just doesn't look that appealing to begin with, because Stevens, has gone to the singlet to help keep the gun in a little bit here.
Yeah, he's seen better times, that's for sure. One of the greatest of all time. Bobby Heenan used to call him the greatest wrestler that he ever saw. And just, what's available and exists out there at Ray Stevens in his prime, the crazy bumps he was taking, the way he worked, he was certainly one of the best, certainly in those decades, long before anybody was doing what they do today. Ray Stevens was absolutely one of the best overall, well-rounded talents in the ring. One of the greatest bumpers for sure. And he was also pretty damn good at coming off that top rope when not a whole lot of guys did that. And he had a maneuver he called the bombs away, but we've already heard that that's been banned here. But it's not banned, Jammie? For some reason, the pile driver. So they banned the bombs away, but not the pile driver. Usually it's the other way around in the other territories, as Ray Stevens going to crush Dean in just 40 seconds for the first of, I guess, 2 pinfalls. Apparently this match not over, as Hall then going to jump Ray, who doesn't fare a whole lot better, does Hall. He does an arm wringer the wrong way, twisting Ray Stevens' arm backwards instead of forwards, which had to piss the crippler off, as he drops Hall across the top rope, face first, and then delivers a knee drop for the quick win. The entire match goes less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, so they got their point over, and I don't know if you caught it during the match. There was some key information thrown in there by
oh boy,
the dean of wrestling.
I can't wait.
We found out that Ray Stevens asked for this match and went to matchmaker George Scott.
Ah, yes, I did hear George Scott's name mentioned again. They continue to use him as their make-believe matchmaker.
So not only do we have George Scott Jr. refereeing, we got George Scott Sr. as the matchmaker.
Sure he is, just like Charlie Lay was running things in Mid-South Sports.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that stuff, though. I love those wink and nods like that. George Scott's still here in spirit as the matchmaker. As we continue on, we go back to Gordon Soley. He's standing by with the man himself, Grumpy Grandpa, number 2.
The Championship Wrestling will not be on the air tomorrow afternoon. It'll be back 1 week from tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, the Braves are playing, so the Best of Championship Wrestling will be on the air 1 week from tomorrow at its regular time. Right now, as I said, of course, earlier in the program, Ric Flair, the new NWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion. I wanted to get some opinions. Wrestling 2 is with me. It would be quite an adversary.
It certainly would, Gordon. As everyone knows, I've been after that title for some time. I'm just sad that I didn't get the opportunity to wrestle Dusty Rhodes. I think it would have been quite an outstanding match. Perhaps I even could capitalize on that. I don't know. Of course, we'll never know now. But now I understand the title has been changed to Ric Flair, a man that has had a lot of thoughts, a lot of back memories of different things, and I understand also that he even got a little nasty in the process of winning the title. Well, that only tells me one thing. As most champions that win that particular title, the world's heavyweight title, they always get a little nasty. Dusty Rhodes is an outstanding person. He didn't. He kept his cool. He kept his mind where it belonged. But this man here, I'm looking forward to getting a hold of. I've seen Ric Flair around a lot.
All right, I'll tell you what, though. Let's take a look at your career right now. And, of course, next Saturday night, you will be in Columbus, Ohio.
That's right. I'll be up there and looking forward to getting up there and meeting all the fans up there once again. And, of course, the Omni, a place that I'm looking forward to going because I do have this opportunity with Ric Flair, a man that I've watched very carefully over the years. I know what he's capable of doing, and I'm sure he has not taken his eyes off wrestling, too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed the match. But here in the Omni, I can assure you people one thing. You're going to get everything that I say, and I'm telling you now, it's a fact. Ric Flair, pull yourself together because Wrestling 2 is going to see you in the Omni with everything he's got because I want that title. I have fought a long, hard time to keep myself up here. And I'm still up here, pal, and I'm after that title.
And tonight, he'll be in, right.
Tonight in Columbus, or Carrollton, we'll see how good that Jap really is. Carrollton tonight.
All right, so before the promo, we learned that there will be no best of tomorrow due to a Braves baseball game. Jamie, I bet you love that.
Yeah, well, I didn't get as upset with the best of show not being on as much as I get upset with the damn college scoreboard, football scoreboard on Saturdays. That ticked me off, but you know, I lived with the Braves interrupting best of. It was what it was.
So how about this, guys? Mr. Wrestling 2 going to challenge Ric Flair for the NWA World Heavyweight title at the Omni. And remember, they had to change things up because Dusty was originally the champion. So I wrote here in my notes, could you imagine Dusty Rhodes versus Wrestling 2? Wow.
They should have pulled the trigger on it. That would have been a great match.
Yeah,
that would have sold me out the Omni.
One time only. I just want to go to see what happens.
It would. Again, I use this comment all the time, but that would have been interesting.
Yeah, so Wrestling 2, needless to say, looking forward to his NWA title match against the Nature Boy in the Omni, but he's also coming to Carrollton later tonight to take on Tor Kamata. As he says, we'll see how good that Jap is tonight.
That's what it was back then, unfortunately. But getting back to 2 again, There was something I meant to bring up a couple of weeks ago before Kevin got all involved with this,
the
fabulous Freebird Michael Hayes, because he was teaming with 2 all the time.
Yes, yeah,
so
quite a bit.
I wonder if maybe at one point they were going to do the Kevin 2 story, in which he becomes like Kevin's coach.
So like the Magnum story in Mid-South?
The Magnum story, but maybe a year or 2 early. Would have been interesting.
Would have been interesting indeed. I don't know if Wrestling 2 wanted to step in the ring because, eventually it calls for them to get it on. And I don't know that Grandpa 2 wanted to get in the ring with Kevin Von Erich throwing those knees and kicks.
But during their tag matches, they were going back and forth who could hurt the opponent more.
Yeah, Wrestling 2 was basically playing anything you can do, Kevin, I can do at least half as good.
Exactly. So I wonder if maybe they were thinking along those lines at one point and then decide to throw Kevin into the Michael Hayes feud instead.
Well, I was really enjoying that. Well, we'll touch on that as we continue on here. I kind of enjoy Kevin Von Erich in that slot because he's a believable competitor, especially after that spot they did with the Superfly splash. But again, we'll continue on with that as these stories go on. Right now, we go back to the ring tag team action. Going to see the newcomer Brian Blair this week teaming with Steve-O, taking on Professor Sonoda and Phil Landrum. Sonoda never managing to tag into this one. It's all Landrum in the ring, and the babyface is totally in control here. Brian Blair with an airplane spin, and then Steve-O off the top rope with a crossbody this week. Babyface is going to score the quick and easy win, 2 minutes and 21 seconds.
Yeah, well, they're teaming up Steve-O with Brian Blair so Steve can teach Brian how to have a personality.
See, if this had been like a backslide or something along those lines, I would have assumed that this match accidentally ended abruptly. But because they both hit basically finishers back-to-back here and put Landrum away, just really shocking it was so fast.
Maybe Sonoda was partly injured here.
I got you there. It just seems so short. It seems like they would have prolonged it. I think they even mentioned that here. We got a promo coming up, but before we do that, this match ends so quickly, they got to go to a standby match. So again, I started wondering, they plan to get all this in the first hour. Did everything kind of run late? And that's why these matches are going so fast, because Tor Kamata is ready. I mean, these guys are rushing to the ring to fit in this standby match in hour 1. It's Tor Kamata with Great Mephisto taking on Tony Russo. Interesting opponent there. No wasted time. Kamata straight to the ring and attacks Russo. Karate chops and jumping kicks. Tor then mugging for the camera, as only he can do. And a standing drop kick by Kamata. Very impressive. Followed by the big splash. Going to get the quick win. 1 minute and 48 seconds. 2 matches back-to-back. Total less than, maybe around 4 minutes of time. So it almost feels like they were rushing to get both of these in the same segment.
Yeah, maybe that's why the previous match was so quick. Because they had to rush it in. They gave the word to I forget who was refereeing that match, and they passed it on. Let's get that tag team match over so we get the next match into the ring. By the way, wasn't the Mid-Atlantic announcer named Phil Landrum, or am I
Rich Landrum?
Rich Landrum. I was close. Maybe it was his brother or cousin or something.
Could have been. Never know.
Only gave him the name for the night.
Maybe both of those matches went quick so that we had time to close out hour number 1 with a promo from Brian Blair and Mr. Personality himself. Here he is, Steve-O.
Tor Kamata victorious in this match. I want to take a second, if I may, to talk to both Steve-O and to Brian Blair and to congratulate both of them on an outstanding tag team victory.
Well, Brian and I didn't expect that easy of a time, but when things came out, things worked very well for us, and it just happened to be.
Enough.
Yeah, you got to watch out for guys like that. The guy has no respect for rules and regulations. The man wants to go out and injure opponents. He can come out here. I don't think I appreciate it. I know I don't appreciate it. I know these people don't appreciate it out there. And if a chance comes, if there's a challenge match that ever wants to be made, I'll challenge that Tor Kamata. Mephisto, I hope you're listening.
Well, all I can say is that, we certainly don't need it here. Brian, I think you might have found yourself a mighty fine tag team partner here.
Well, I sure did. Steve's a very fine partner. He's just like I am. When I step into that ring, I step in for one reason, and that's to win. And anybody that comes in there to wrestle me, they better expect the same thing, because I'm going to be out there to win my match.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. I might just say that coming back in just 5 minutes, we'll have the most popular wrestler contest winner. We'll also hopefully have with us the World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair and lots more great wrestling action. And now, direct and live from the Stadium Club, let's go for 5 minutes of baseball scores with my friend, Bob Neal.
All right, this is a fun one here. Blair and Steve-O up there with Gordon Solie. Tor Kamata going to pass them by during this promo, in case you guys are wondering what's going on there, as Stevie begins to talk the success of their prior bout. It ended abruptly. He wasn't even expecting to put their opponents away so quickly. Then Tor Kamata walking by, and he shoulder bumps Mr. Personality. And Steve, he shoves him right back. We almost have a studio brawl there, Jammie. But cooler heads do prevail, as Steve says he doesn't think that he appreciated that. No, in fact, he knows he didn't appreciate that, and neither did the fans. He says Tor Kamata has no respect for rules or regulations. Boy, isn't that milquetoast. He says if Kamata wants a challenge match, Steve will challenge him. I wrote, what a promo from so many different aspects. I don't think I appreciated that. And then if you want a challenge match, I'll challenge you. Kind of odd.
It shows you how far Steve is coming. He can
Yeah.
He can take any interview from all different angles. But yeah, you're probably right. They wanted to get this little setup in there so they could have that challenge match.
Very cool, guys. We get to hear Steve-O doing sound bites all the way into September. I would have never have guessed that. Right now, we end hour number 1. We're going to go off to Jamie's favorite segment of the show. It's off to the football scoreboard for 5 minutes, and then back to Georgia Championship Wrestling for hour number 2. And it's time. We've been waiting for this for weeks, Jammie. It's time to determine the most popular wrestler contest award winner. And let's bring him out right now. Gordon Solie introducing the winner, guys. And it's not Mr. Wrestling 2, brother.
And it's got to be Steve-O then.
It's not Steve-O.
Ah, come on. Then it's got to be Iron Mike Sharp Jr.
But see, he turned heel, so he's no longer in the running. I guess.
How about Bruiser Brody? He said he was going to win.
He might have. Had he been here still. It's possible. But instead, believe it or not, it is the one and only, somebody say something about the Wildfire Tommy Rich, named the most popular wrestler in Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Boo. 2 got robbed.
Is he not in your top 5? No love for the Wildfire?
No, Tommy's in the top 10, but he's not in the top 5. He's not past 2. I'm going to have to compile a list for the next show. I'll have my top 10 of Georgia Championship Wrestling fall of 1981.
Well, I don't know how legit this whole most popular wrestler contest really was, but let's be real. Tommy Rich was indeed, a heartthrob for some reason, and one of the most over talents that ever came through the Georgia territory throughout the early to mid 1980s there. Tommy Rich was, he was NWA World Champion for 5 days. That's just how big he was here in the Peach State of Georgia. As Tommy says, he appreciates the award and the fans. Tommy Rich receiving a plaque and a trophy. Pretty underwhelming trophy at that, Jammie. As Michael Hayes and Steve-O are out to shake the hands and congratulate Rich here. And then comes, Mr. Wrestling 2 comes out, and he takes the trophy away from Tommy Rich, and he stares at it. This is great stuff. Grumpy,
do it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking right here, right now. Do it, Grumpy 2. As the grandpa himself, the masked man, number 2. Will he make the turn? Will he do it, Jammie? Nope. While 2 admits the trophy would look a whole lot better on his mantle, he congratulates Tommy Rich on the win and hopes he goes a long way.
Even I would have to admit that if this was a legit contest, there would be Michael Hayes possibly, but Tommy Rich is number 1, especially if you got the teenage girls sending their votes in. Michael, he's attracting another kind of woman vote in. Tommy's getting the younger votes. It's just like the Rock and Roll Express a couple years later. Everybody was behind Tommy Rich. It really should have gone to Tommy.
No, I totally agree with you here. Tommy Rich certainly would have likely been the winner of this entire ordeal, and he's announced as the winner here, but they should have pulled the trigger. They had the opportunity. Even if it only would have lasted a couple months, I would have loved to seen Wrestling 2 and Tommy Rich have a little tangle for this trophy here. I can see Wrestling 2 breaking it over his knee, giving the trophy a knee lift, breaking it in half. And Tommy Rich down, picking up the pieces. Boy, that would have been a good little booking experiment there. It is what it is. Tommy Rich awarded a plaque and a small trophy here. And then he leaves as he graces us. We've been waiting an hour for him to arrive. and making his very first public appearance nationwide as the brand new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Here he is, guys, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
Thank you all very, very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, making his first television appearance nationwide at this time, the brand new NWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion. He defeated Dusty Rhodes this past Thursday night in Kansas City. My pleasure to introduce the new NWA Wrestling Champion, Ric Flair. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. You know, I'm a little embarrassed to have to stand back there in the control room holding the most coveted trophy in all of professional wrestling. You know it. I know it. There isn't a wrestling fan in the world that doesn't know it. The biggest gold of them all. While you stand out here presenting Tommy Rich a plaque and a trophy that he couldn't get a cup of coffee for downtown. While Ric Flair stands back there, the new National Wrestling Alliance World Champion. Tommy Rich is out here with this Mickey Mouse trophy that I would have won hands down had I entered that contest. You know it. Everybody out there knows it. Now, let me say one more thing. I came down here just as I've appeared on every major wrestling program in the country, and I told the people that I was born with a golden spoon, that I wore the finest clothes money could buy, the most expensive jewelry, driven in the biggest cars, flew in the nicest airplanes. Everything I've ever wanted in life has been mine. I reiterate, if I couldn't buy it, I went out and got it. Well, there was no buying the NWA Championship. It took a superb athlete in superb condition, mentally and physically, one that is not going to be denied. I wanted this. I went out and got it. That doesn't say anything bad about Dusty Rhodes. He's a great athlete. He never would have worn it. But I wanted it that much worse, that much more. And I went out and got it. And now this completes Ric Flair's attire. The biggest gold of them all, the most coveted trophy. It's mine, Gordon Soley. I'm in Georgia. Line them up. Tommy Rich, Wrestling 2, Jimmy Snuka, Gordy, the superstar. Line them up. I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it 100 more times. If there's a wrestler out there that wants to find out where he stands, where he ranks in professional wrestling, the greatest sport in the world today, then he better get in the ring with Ric Flair, because I am the illusion destroyer. There's a lot of men out there that think they ought to be where I am today, and I will destroy that illusion. Just sign the contract, get in the ring, woo! And the great one, who is going to ride on forever, will show you why he's wearing the big gold now and for a long, long time. Thank you, Gordon Soley.
Well, thank you very much.
Ric Flair embarrassed that he had to stand in the control room holding his NWA World title, Jammie, while Tommy Rich is presented a Mickey Mouse trophy that couldn't buy him a cup of coffee. I can't really argue that.
No, Flair told it how it was.
Ric Flair reiterating what he said before. If he can't buy it, he takes it. And you can't buy the NWA World title, so he went out and took it from the American Dream. And now his attire is complete. He has the NWA gold around his waist as he runs down the Georgia roster, listing off plenty of the talent here, potential challengers around the corner, but Ric Flair welcoming all comers, for he is the illusion destroyer. Gonna destroy all the illusions of everyone who thinks that they have what it takes to be the world champion. Ric Flair out here cutting a promo as only he can. Woo!
And how prophetic that this speech, his first national interview as World Heavyweight Champion, is going to be the way it is for the next 20 years.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's very prophetic. And, you know, there's another promo coming up, I believe, on the next episode of TV. But some of the things he says, even though, you know, you have to have that in you, you have to believe it. And even if you don't, it has to be part of your character to say these things. But a lot of the things we're going to hear him say here on these couple episodes of TV are pretty much very true of what happens over the next 20, maybe 30 years of his career.
If you look at wrestling as a shoot, he has predicted his entire career come
all
down
the way
ahead of
back.
him.
Yeah, all the way back in 1981. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I wanted to add a little thing here.
Yeah.
At this time in Philadelphia, I believe the wrestling came on Channel 17 or 29 at the time, and WWF every year they always taped in Allentown and Hamburg, PA. Well, in September they needed an agricultural hall for the Pennsylvania State Fair every year.
Uh-huh.
So normally they ran their TV tapings, both sets of TV tapings over in Hamburg, and they either just used use those tapings for both shows, or sometimes they would do back and forth matches for each show. Well, in the Philadelphia market, for some reason, Championship Wrestling or All-Star Wrestling stopped airing for a month. And for 3 weeks, we got Championship Wrestling from Florida. And at that time, it was the Assassin Dusty Rhodes feud where the Assassin was doing the title claimant of the world title, claiming he was world champ because he beat Dusty Rhodes in a match but didn't get the belt. Well, when that ended, they then ran 3 or 4 weeks of Georgia Championship Wrestling, the syndicated show, and the second hour here is what was syndicated, at least in Philadelphia. It starts off with the Tommy Rich and then goes into the Ric Flair, and everything else that we're going to see here was all on the Philadelphia local show. Just something useless knowledge for people. That it looks like the second hour of this was used as their syndicated show.
Yeah, I would say, it's a very stacked hour, so it makes sense. We get the award winner announced at the top of the show, Tommy Rich, then the world champion just happens to show up right after that, Ric Flair here. And of course, we're going to see a lot more in this hour, including up next in the ring, tag team champions Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka taking on Bobby Garrett and Ken Timms. Snuka going to deliver a drop kick out of a crisscross spot on Timms. Gordy then in with a freaking high running body block. I couldn't believe how high. I don't know why I'm so shocked at the things Gordy can do, but he gets up over 6 feet in the air with a crossbody, a running body block here by Terry Gordy of all people. You just don't see that every week. And then from there, going to deliver a power slam, setting Garrett up for the Superfly splash as the Georgia champion's going to get the win 7 minutes flat.
You know, what was surprising, well, not so much surprising in this match, but Gordy must have had a soft spot for Bobby Garrett. This isn't
he gave him a lot of offense, yeah.
Yes, he gave him a lot of offense in this match, and the couple other times I remember seeing them in the ring together, even back, he was still part of the Freebirds. He always gave Garrett, a little bit of offense in it.
Yeah, this has got to be at least the third time that I remember these two across the ring from each other, and every time it's noticeable. I'm not saying Gordy was never greedy. He always loved to bump, and he always gave guys that had no business getting any offense on him. He gave him some offense. But I do agree with you in regards to Garrett. It seems like every time he's been in the ring with him, he's given him not just, a couple of blows, but Garrett's getting to shine a little bit.
Yeah, and I forget who the other enhancement guy is coming up. Him and Garrett would team up quite often in a losing effort, but I could have seen those guys getting a push somewhere as possible tag team champions. As we advance on, the other guy will come up and I'll remember what his name was, but they were a solid little enhancement tag team.
All right, guys, we just saw him a little bit ago, and he's back out for another promo talking about the Wildfire Tommy Rich, and this time he has a boot, but he has it in his hand here, and for good reason. We'll get to it in just a second. Tommy, once again, thanking the fans for voting him their favorite wrestler, as apparently Gordon says all 50 states voted. I don't know if I buy that, Gordon, but okay. Tommy says he's fixing to get the superstar in the Omni as he shows off, okay, here it is in my notes, a cowboy boot for the upcoming street fight. There it is. These guys going to be going at it once again. This time it's going to be in a no-rules street fight. Tommy coming in there with a boot in one hand and his fist still taped up in the other.
Tommy Rich and Mass Superstar, the feud isn't over yet.
No, Superstar may have defeated Tommy for that Georgia title, but Rich is not done with him. Coming for the Superstar's gold. As we'll see how that plays out as we continue on. We get another promo here, this time from Michael Hayes and Kevin Von Erich. They go back in time. We get a VTR from the Omni. Hayes and Von Erich going to talk over it. It is the Hayes-Von Erich match versus Gordy and Snuka. We talked about it already. The finish going to see Superfly missing a somersault senton off the top rope. Thought that was pretty cool for 1981. Michael Hayes going to get the hot tag out finally. Kevin Von Erich in. locking on those body scissors, going for that lateral roll that Gordon Solie talks about. Kevin responds, whatever you want to call it, Gordon. Von Erich not really amused with the names. Gordon keeps trying to tag this move. Jimmy Snuka, though, tagging to Terry Gordy as he's getting rolled up by Kevin. So fun little spot there. Von Erich rolling Snuka, but Snuka getting the tag off. Terry comes in, but he misses a corner charge, and Kevin locking in the Iron Claw. But they take it over to the corner where Michael Hayes back in the ring. He wants Gordy. He bloodies Gordy, and he delivers the running bulldog. But Hayes is not done yet. Going to hit Gordy with his own move, the pile driver from Michael Hayes on Bam Bam, the future Bam Bam. Awesome bump. A lot of pile drivers, what can you do? But I thought Gordy did an excellent bump here off of the pile driver given to him by Hayes. So down goes Gordy as Hayes makes the cover, but it's Jimmy Snuka to the rescue. We talked about this, grabbing Gordy by his boots, yanking him from the ring, and the heels leaving to fight another day.
Yeah, what great action this year. I know they didn't show the entire match on television, but what they did show was just outstanding.
No, it was absolutely, it was great.
And these four guys weren't missing any spots. They were doing everything to perfection. If I was there, I would have been going absolutely crazy if I was in the Omni that night.
No, it was a well-told story. They did an excellent job.
Oh, yeah, they definitely did. And did you catch Kevin's line, how he had lightning bolts coming out of his fingers?
No, I missed that, but
during that match, he was getting so excited that lightning bolts were coming out of his fingers.
Or so he thought.
So he thought. I mean, but Kevin might have really thought it.
Well, I'm not questioning that whatsoever. As a rematch is in place, we talked about it earlier. They reiterated here. A fence will be around the ring. Steel cage match coming up at the Omni between these two teams. There will be a winner. Speaking of winners, speaking of champions, the dual champion, the masked superstar, the Georgia champ, the national champion at this point in time, in the ring now, taking on Denny Brown. Denny can move. He's really getting around the ring. Good amateur wrestling early on from Brown. And counters by the future world junior heavyweight champion. He's not letting Superstar get the best of him, at least not right out of the gate. Denny Brown proving to be a credible opponent, at least for the short term. Superstar, though, going to take over. Awesome spot where he lands 3 backbreakers and a slam all in one move. Never drops Brown, just continues to deliver moves, standing back up and driving him back down again before it's the swinging neck breaker, the left-armed lariat, and the cobra hold, putting Denny Brown away. Match goes 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Everything you could ever ask out of a squash match.
Yeah, you got to admire Bill Eadie, just like Terry Gordy. Wasn't afraid to put his opponent over early, but does he come back with a vengeance after that? And he just finishes him off in very strong fashion.
So Superstar back out here for a promo. We saw him earlier with Otis Sistrunk. He's back now. And he's going to mock Tommy Rich, who was out here earlier saying hello to his mom and dad. But as Superstar's doing this, mocking Tommy Rich, out comes Wildfire, who arrives for his matchup in the ring. I love the timing on this stuff every week here on TV. They let Superstar cut a promo. Tommy Rich just happens to be passing by. He's got a match in the ring as they're promoting their upcoming street fight at the Omni.
Oh, yeah, and it's going to be a wild one, that's for sure.
So Macho Man was the king of props. Remember, he used to cut the promos and hold out a cup of coffee, and his cream of the crop, pulled out some creamers. Well, Superstar not going to be outdone here this week as he pulls out some props for the upcoming street fight, including what I thought to be barbed wire. Wasn't really sure of that, but then he goes and grabs a push broom as he says he's going to sweep what's left of Tommy Rich out of the ring at the Omni.
That was priceless. Who said Superstar didn't have a sense of humor? That was great. I was rolling watching it.
It was good stuff, and it's a fun little feud. Really, to be honest with you guys, I mean, the title's on the line, so I can't really call it a little feud. But Tommy Rich, a big-name player, obviously the greatest, the most favorite wrestler of all the fans here in the company, and Superstar, one of the greatest heels of all time.
Isn't this like the second time around for this feud also? What was it, 78, 79? They had a short little run in Georgia.
Yeah, they may have. When Heenan was there, maybe? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was during that time when Tommy's teaming up with the Crusher and stuff. So this isn't the first time these guys have worked together, so that's why this is all meshing together very well.
Yeah, and we go to the ring, as mentioned, Wildfire Tommy Rich in there to take on Bob McKenzie. McKenzie going to take a nasty spill out of the ring early on. Looks like he almost falls on his face as he's selling Tommy Rich's new aggressive attitude. Gordon Solie says the superstar may have inadvertently instilled Rich with the skill to go for the kill. Interesting, Gordon. McKenzie, though, he does get in some shots here. We got to keep sympathy on the Wildfire after all, Jammie. But Tommy got to battle back, applying a grounded head scissors, turning it into a pile driver. I wrote, that was weird. I hadn't seen that before. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Who says that Tommy Rich wasn't a ring technician? Yes, I do know what you're talking about. I don't know how he pulled that one off. I'm not even sure he meant to pull that off.
Yeah, see, when I saw him do it, I was like, did I just see that? But it was Gordon who reiterated it. And that's what I was like, that is what that was. Again, like you said, whether it was meant to be or not, Tommy working a head scissors on the ground, and somehow McKenzie kind of in a headstand position, and Tommy sort of turning it into a pile driver of sorts there without even ever having to get to his feet. So take that, guys. The match continues on. Rich going to steal a page out of Grumpy Grandpa's book, delivering a knee lift here, and then a middle rope fist drop, doing Lawler's move as well. So it's going to be the abdominal stretch, though, that gives Tommy Rich the win. Match goes 4 minutes and 48 seconds, and in order to put over that extra aggressive style, it takes a little bit for Rich to release.
Yeah, well, he has to get tougher. If he's going to face a superstar in a Texas street fight, why is all these matches always from Texas, by the way? But if they're going to have one of these matches, Tommy's got to get tough. And besides, this is preparing him for Buzz Sawyer in another year or so.
Yeah, good question. I was wondering that last time around. I get the Texas Death and the Texas Tornado, but now we have a Texas street fight. Why can't it be a Georgia street brawl?
Yeah, you'd think Atlanta. I mean, at least we do get a bad street fight in Texas, down the line. But yeah, well, why is it always a Texas street fight?
Yeah, Ole's not even from Texas, so it's not like he's putting over his home state or anything. Like it is really weird. As we go on,
and Dusty's not the champ anymore, so you don't have to appease.
Yeah, no appeasing the Mac and Dream right now. But speaking of champions, the NWA World Champion, the current champion, Ric Flair, back out for a very quick promo, talking his upcoming match once again with Wrestling 2 at the Omni, and then it's straight back to the ring for Tor Kamata with the Great Mephisto taking on Jerry Mahoney, and Kamata working over the chest with headbutts as he drives a chop into the heart area of Mahoney here. Tor Kamata spending the match looking for an open area on the chest. Kind of weird. According to Gordon, trying to locate the heartbeat area, the pulse here on Jerry Mahoney. Not really sure what that would do. Good luck finding that on Abby, by the way, Tor Kamata. I wrote, holy shit, I thought he was going to beat him with the trapezius hold. Tor Kamata locking that in on Mahoney here, and he looked like he was out. But they fooled me, Jammie. It goes on to be a thrust chop to the throat and the big splash that gets it done. Match goes 5 minutes. All sorts of shit all over the place here in this match.
Oh, yeah, and an impressive win by Kamata. And if you listen to Mephisto, Kamata's going to take the belt from Ric Flair.
Yeah, everybody's going to take the belt from Ric Flair, but none more scary right now than Tor Kamata. Let's see what he does with Abdullah. Then I might buy this hype, because Tor Kamata and Abby going to be an interesting match. It's going to be curious to see who comes out the winner in that one. As we go on, we get a promo from Kamata, and, well, more so Mephisto here. He talks about Kamata being trained in sumo, karate, judo, catch-can wrestling, and even boxing. Now, some of those things are not like the others when it comes to Kamata's in-ring appearance, but I won't hold it against him. If Mephisto says that Kamata's trained in all of these facets of combat sports, then so be it. I look forward to seeing him use all of those to take down Abdullah the Butcher. I just hope that he was prepared to walk in and wrestle him with forks.
Very good point on that one. But Mephisto was probably just caught up in the moment, and that's all different kind of combat fighting was popping into his head.
Yeah, it was a Gary Hart special. I'm just going to talk out my ass. Not knocking Gary Hart, but, he was known to do that when he had to.
You got to do what you got to do to kill time.
That's right. As speaking of killing time, we head back to the ring for one quick standby match to close the show. Don't Tell This to Wrestling 2, who is in the ring to score a win over Jose Medina with the old Juju Gatami, the cross arm breaker, busting it out once again. Match goes 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Wrestling 2, keeping his matches short, sweet, and to the point.
Yeah, and if he's going to be Ric Flair's first challenger for that title, you got to make 2 look as strong as you can. And
yeah, they had to get him in before the end of the show.
Both matches, the real quick, short matches, and then winning with that arm bar. good way to get 2 over. Plus, 2's over anyway. The people in Georgia saw him as a credible challenger for Flair, and I'm sure they actually thought 2 could have beat Flair.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional RASSLIN Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional RASSLIN. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at RASSLIN Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/RASSLIN Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/RASSLIN Grenade. And of course, now would be a fantastic time to become a WrestleCopia patron. I'm talking about that $5 all access tier over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, where you get so many gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Regional RASSLIN, and the Monday Warfare podcast. You'll also get early access to a lot of the podcasts here on the WrestleCopia brand, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. We also offer remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show, covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all, guys. You also get at least a dozen digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure each and every month, plus random bonus video drops, and of course, the Patreon-exclusive Watch-Along series, covering many past WWF and WCW events. And if that's not all, videocasts, also now a part of Patreon. And for those who like all of their podcasts in one nice, neat little pile, the WrestleCopia Patreon also offers a Patreon-exclusive Spotify account. You can actually go over to your Spotify with your WrestleCopia Patreon credentials. Instead of listening or downloading directly from Patreon, you can go over to Spotify, listen to all the latest shows, including all of the early releases. And you get all of that and so much more for just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime. Give it a try for a month, guys. I think you'll like the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia. Help me pay some of the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the great shows here up and running for the months and the years to come. We roll on, guys. A couple of shows here on the Saturday night, September 19th. One in Carrollton, Georgia at the fairgrounds. I don't have the card, but we do know that Wrestling 2 said he was going to wrestle, and I quote, that Jap, referring to Tor Kamata, so we know that was on the card. Meanwhile, over in Gadsden, Alabama at the Coliseum on September 19th, it was Bruno Jr. Going to a draw with the French Angel, Steve O over Ken Timms, Ray the Crippler Stevens defeating George Wells, and Michael Hayes teaming with Steve O, defeating the team of Jimmy Snuka and Terry Gordy, the champs there in Gadsden, Alabama. Well, Hayes did say he was coming to Gadsden, sweet home Alabama, so he wasn't lying.
Absolutely, and I would have loved to see that Stevens-Wells match. I mean, yeah, Stevens is at the end of his career, but Wells is up and coming, and I bet they meshed pretty well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Stevens took a couple of decent bumps there for some of the stuff that Wells can do, because Ray, he could pull something out when he needed to, and he certainly enjoyed bumping back in the heyday, so that would have been interesting to see what they did there. Of course, at the same time, we could be fantasizing. They could have just sat on the ground with a chin lock.
That's very possible, too.
September 20th, Chattanooga Memorial Auditorium on the card. Brian Blair and Professor Sonoda, one-on-one, and tag team action. Tor Kamata teaming with Ray the Crippler Stevens, taking on Bruno Jr. and Mr. Wrestling 2. Also on the card, Gordy versus Michael Hayes. Wow. Battle of the former Freebirds there, one-on-one. I don't know if we've seen that yet up until this point. Jimmy Snuka versus Kevin Von Erich, and Tommy Rich taking on the Superstar in a Texas street fight.
I'd love to see that Snuka Kevin Von Erich match. A matter of fact, remember this show. We'll get back to it.
All right, sounds good. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to go on now. September 21st, Augusta, Georgia, Bell Auditorium. Brian Blair over French Angel. Wrestling 2 defeating Rick Ferreira. It's Ray Stevens over Bruno Jr. Michael Hayes teaming with Mr. Wrestling 2, subbing for Kevin Von Erich. More on that. Yeah. So Von Erich missing Augusta here on the 21st. It's going to be Wrestling 2 and Hayes over Tor Kamata and Terry Gordy. Then from there, the Superstar defeating Tommy Rich in a lumberjack match. A lot more on that too. And the NWA World Heavyweight Champion coming to town. And I love the realism here, Jamie, because it was supposed to be initially Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair taking on the contractual obligations of the NWA World Champion, wrestling another heel. It's Ric Flair versus Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Now, Flair going to get the win there, but oh my God, what a world title match.
Oh, yeah. And this is something WF didn't do.
Right.
They should have, but like when Backlund lost to the Sheik, the next month at the Spectrum, it was Tito Santana against the Sheik instead of whoever Backlund was supposed to fight. And I forget who, I think it was Wardor. I forget who he wrestled on that show. But instead of that, they would call the audible. But here you get the match, which is great. I would have loved to see this. And I'm sure these guys worked quite a few times in Mid-Atlantic together. So they were very familiar.
So they bring a hell of a roster and some really fun matches here in Augusta. But one name omitted from this card on September 21st was Steve O. No Steve O in Augusta, Georgia, guys. And do you know why, Jamie?
Why, Ray?
Because Steve-O went up to the Big Apple, New York City. Steve-O gonna work Madison Square Garden and score a win over Ron Shaw. Also participate in a battle royal on the same night there, but Steve-O getting to work the Garden.
Oh, I didn't realize this is when it happened. I knew he worked the Garden, but I did not realize it was this night. See? They had big plans for Steve-O, and never tell me again they didn't.
Making the rounds. Steve-O up there working MSG of all places. Double duty. Battle royal and getting a win.
If he doesn't get that staph infection, maybe Steve-O is the next big thing in wrestling.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I said maybe.
Okay. We'll continue on September 22nd. Macon, Georgia at the Coliseum. Mike Sharp going to a draw with Brian Blair. It's Steve-O over the French Angel. Ray Stevens defeating Bruno Jr. Michael Hayes now teaming with Tommy Rich over Jimmy Snuka and Terry Gordy by DQ. And, there's another fun one. World champion Ric Flair over the Masked Superstar.
It's the one I was talking about earlier. He does get his title match, and that's great. I just love it.
Yeah, no, I would love to see these world championship matches, Flair and Snuka, Flair and the Superstar. Even more so this one. I can kind of picture Flair and Snuka being really good, but I can kind of picture that one. This one would have been more interesting for me. But either way, give me either one.
But still, Flair, in his entire time in Georgia, going back to his appearances in 1980 and then early 81, and then again right before he wins the belt, he's never a pure heel. He's never a pure face. but he's that perfect tweener.
Well,
So
these promos certainly sound heelish to me.
This interview, yes, but the ones before that, it's still, you could have taken the interview either way. He wasn't your Dusty Rhodes babyface, but he wasn't, your disgusting Terry Gordy heel type.
Yeah.
Mass superstar. He wasn't like that.
No, yeah, I totally agree. But these promos right now that are going on, they're pretty heelish.
On that show we just covered, yes, that was a heel one. But leading up to that point.
No, I totally agree with you.
It's been in between.
Yeah, he was very much a tweener, no doubt about it. As we roll on September 23rd, Columbus, Georgia, Memorial Auditorium, Mike Sharp.
My birthday.
Is it? Well, happy birthday when we get there, Jamie.
That's my birthday. I would have turned 15 that day.
Awesome. Hopefully you were enjoying yourself. I don't know if I can remember what I was doing at 15, but
I was probably watching a Phillies game.
Well, very good.
Yeah, because it was midweek. I was probably watching a Phillies game. That was post-strike, so they were going down the stretch.
Post-strike, boy, you can say that pretty much any time in the 80s, 90s. Yeah. Let's see what we do here in Columbus, Jamie. Mike Sharp going to a draw with Brian Blair. Terry Gordy over Ken Timms. It's kind of an odd match. Ray Stevens and Tor Kamata over Wrestling 2 and Steve-O. It's the Superstar National Champion defeating Ted Oates, and we're Columbus, Georgia, so it's kind of a big deal, even though they haven't really been utilizing Ted as of late. We are in his home city of Columbus, so it's kind of a big match for the locals. Also,
we haven't seen much of the Oates brothers recently.
No, not much at all, especially Jerry. We'll have to see if that changes here. Michael Hayes over Superfly Snuka, and in the main event, world champion still in town, Ric Flair defeating the former world champion Tommy Rich on a countout. So Ric Flair taking on all challengers, much like Dusty Rhodes. Interesting booking in Georgia. It's a different opponent every night.
They did that with Dusty. Dusty was doing a different opponent. Yeah. So it's good to see. Since we've been covering it, even when Harley Race came in, like you're saying, different opponent every night. Yeah, just in case you were going town to town, I guess, because everything was so close. Even though other matches they were using over and over again.
Right, exactly. It's kind of weird, but, they don't want to discredit the world champion because, again, they probably even realize that some people, we've heard it so many times, they said that wrestling's fake, but those world title matches, those are real. And they got to keep the reality there in the world championship run for the Nature Boy. As we continue on, I don't have results, but I do have dates here. Thursday, couple of shows on the 24th of September in Valdosta, Georgia, Mathis Auditorium, also in Alma, Georgia at the Bacon County High School. And then we move on to Friday, September 25th in Hiawassee, Georgia at the Mountain Fairgrounds. No results.
I love that name, Hiawassee.
Hiawassee, yeah, it's pretty damn cool. As we have no results, no matchups for those shows, but I do like to cover all the ground that we can here, Jamie. So we will fast forward to the following Saturday morning taping for another edition of 605 Championship Wrestling, WTBS Studios, Atlanta, Georgia. More Georgia goodness here as the host, Gordon Soley, welcoming us to the show. Another big week as a loaded show, as usual these days, Jamie. But we start things out on a somber note. Here is Gordon Soley to explain.
Unfortunately, we're going to start off on rather a somber note regarding Georgia Championship Wrestling this week. I'm referring to the fact, of course, that Kevin Von Erich has been injured and is on the injured list right now. He is unable to compete. Michael Hayes is coming out. As you know, of course, Michael Hayes, the Fabulous Freebird, and Kevin Von Erich had struck up a tag team combination that looked like it was going to be virtually invincible. But Kevin, unfortunately, injuries have put you to one side.
Gordon, we had him beat. I had that title right within my grasp. I know that that Michael and I would be wearing the belts now if he hadn't have pulled him out. Now we've got the cage. It was my big break. Snook and Gordy intentionally attacked me, ruined my knee. I've got to go to a hospital bed now. But I guarantee you that I will be back. And when I do come back, I'm not going to be all smiles and flowers. I'm coming back to get even with Snuka and Gordy for doing what they did to me. I'm not going to be able to be with this guy that I've grown rather close to. And he's going to be in this match with a guy that he's never been with before. But I guarantee you that I'll be with him in spirit. And when I do come back, I'm going to raise a little hell.
Well, I can understand exactly what he's saying. Kevin Von Erich has been put to the sidelines by injury.
I hate that this happened to you on my expense. And I
I'd like to apologize to you because, first of all, there shouldn't be nobody getting hurt out of this except maybe me or Terry. There doesn't need to be anybody else involved. And now another, I don't want to say innocent standby because the man's a fine athlete. He could take care of himself, but it was a centered attack. It wasn't just an injury that occurs, okay? So like I said, man, I appreciate everything you've done.
You're my friend. I'll be back.
So we learn right out of the gate, right at the start of the show, that Kevin Von Erich has suffered a knee injury at the hands of Snuka and Gordy. And Kevin, he has to go spend some time in the hospital because of that. And with that, Von Erich is pulled from the upcoming tag team title match inside that fence, inside the steel cage at the Omni.
Very disappointed. But I'm going to assume that he must have got hurt in that match with Jimmy Snuka earlier in the week, because the next night, 2 subs for him, and he doesn't appear on another house show. So I'm going to guess he tweaked the knee and called Fritz to tell him, and Fritz said, oh, no more. We're not going to wrestle injured. We're going to get that thing taken care of as soon as possible. That's the only thing I can guess went on, because I've never heard whether this was a legit injury or not.
Right. And you kind of convinced me that maybe it was to some degree based on some of the stuff we were talking about offline the other day. But when I took notes here, I said, I have so many questions because Kevin Von Erich, supposedly his knee is injured, yet he walks out here to the promo just fine, no crutches. And then he says he has to go to the hospital. Just seemed like an odd injury.
Yeah, he must have tweaked the knee. I mean, medicine has advanced so far. Like, I got all kind of tears in my knee, but I can walk fine. When I retire, I'll probably get them all, fixed up. So maybe it was something just as simple as that. Maybe he tweaked the knee. They did the MRI or whatever techniques they had at the time, and Fritz said, "Oh no, you're done. You're not wrestling until all this is taken care of."
Well,
so maybe that's what occurred, because as we talked off air, and I swear, and we'll find out when we look a little bit forward, I swear I remember seeing Kevin on TV after this, but this time he's on crutches. But we'll find out as we advance to our next Wrestling Radio Georgia Championship Wrestling show.
Radio?
WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But slipping a tongue there. But anyway, I think that's what was going on with Kevin.
Yeah, you mentioned medicine there. That very well could have come into play with Kevin Von Erich walking out here on his knee just fine right now.
But Michael got shot.
Well, that's not really where I was going with the medicine, but sure, why not?
The other kind of medicine.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it was common in football there in the late 70s. I mean, I'm sure you saw North Dallas 40, those guys getting shot up left and right. So
Sure. Shoot him up. Michael Hayes here. He said he feels bad that someone else was hurt in his feud with Terry Gordy, but he does thank Kevin Von Erich for everything that he's done up until this point. I wrote Bizarro World here as Kevin Von Erich then shakes hands with Michael Hayes and calls him a friend, promising that he'll be back.
And he does come back. I'm pretty sure he comes back for one show, and
it's just creepy listening to
and then we never see him again.
It's just creepy listening to him refer to Michael Hayes verbally here as a friend, based on what's to come in future months, years, things of that nature.
When they get to world class, isn't it that Hayes is actually friends with David?
I know he's friends with the Von Erichs. I don't remember exactly how that all played out. Right.
I thought Bill Mercer or Mr. Lawrence in Hayes' first appearance said that he was friends with David.
Very well could be. I don't know what
But
story.
I'm sure we got a world-class fan out there that could straighten that out for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's more than one. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you guys. Let us know there on social media. So Michael Hayes, bummed that he got Kevin into all of this, but Kevin walking away with his head held high, got to go off to the hospital and apparently get some sort of maybe surgery done. I'm not really sure there, as Michael Hayes thinks this may have been a blessing in disguise because he had to go out and find a man he didn't have to worry about taking care of himself. He went out and found himself some rolling black thunder, Jammie, a 2-time Pro Bowler, former Oakland Raider, in the form of Otis Sistrunk.
But Gordon, sometimes it's funky. Things happen and you don't know why. and then they turn out to be maybe possibly a blessing in disguise. Now, I had to go get somebody, and I had to get somebody that I didn't want to worry about something like a fine career happening to again on my account. I had to get somebody that could get down and do something that I wanted to do exactly and not give a damn about doing it. Now, I went out and I got me some Rolling Black Thunder. You understand? 2-time Pro Bowl. I mean, one of the meanest defensive linemen you ever seen. And if I could get Otis Sistrunk to come out and just tell him all about it, big man.
Well, I'll tell you something, Rick. I'll tell you, I am one of the meanest men you want to see. And I'll tell you, Terry, I'm going to try to break both his legs. I'll tell you, when I come out with you with Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be one of the toughest men you ever seen. And I'm going to do the job. And I tell you, when I played professional football, I broke arms, legs, broke jaws. And I tell you, I was one of the meanest men ever hit the field for the Oakland Raiders.
I'm going to tell you something, Gordy.
I'll go along with that.
It's just a little something people don't know. Otis Sistrunk and I met about 3 years in a bar in Oakland, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Right.
And we got down and we had a good time. And I got a piece of film that if you'll show just a small relationship that Mr. Gordy and Mr. Snuka didn't know about. Just roll the film.
All right, let's take a look at the situation right now, if you will. Well, it was at a particular point in this match that, well, things sort of changed.
Well, like I said, baby, you know, sometimes you can never expect it, but a rolling cloud of black thunder come rolling right in, and just watch his hair. Now watch what this man can do. Just watch, baby.
I want to tell you something. That is about one of the hardest forearms you want to see. And when I throw it, I throw it. I don't lighten up on it. And I tell you, every ball player that I played against in the NFL, they remember it.
Well, I have a hunch right now that Mr. Snuka and Mr. Gordy are suddenly learning to remember things, too. Wow, you talk about the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. Well, that irresistible force suddenly had to leave the ring. Otis Sistrunk and Michael Hayes standing tall in the ring at this particular point in time. And, gentlemen, all I can say is that later on in the program, I hope to talk to Mr. Snuka and Mr. Gordy, and I think it might be quite interesting to hear their comments.
Well, you just tell them to get ready because the final thing done come down.
There you have it, Otis Sistrunk and Michael Hayes, a brand new tag team combination.
So wrong, but so right. I mean, Otis was made for this moment. In this particular interview segment, Otis just exudes confidence. I mean,
sure,
you could actually buy that this guy thinks he's going to walk in that ring and be something.
Boy, yeah, he's big, bad, tough Otis Sistrunk here. And I got to go back to 15-year-old Jammie Ward. Of all the people that Michael Hayes was going to bring out here, I bet you didn't see that one coming.
I didn't see that one coming at all. At all.
Oh, we hear from Otis, though, and I love right out of the gate, he kills the whole promo for me when he looks over and he tells Michael Hayes, well, I tell you something, Rick. I am one of the meanest mans you've ever seen. He says he's going to break Terry's legs and do the job.
Well, obviously he was talking to Ric Flair in the back.
Oh, man. Meanest mans is Otis Sistrunk.
The guy is priceless.
Oh, yeah, he's only been here 2 weeks. He's been lighting it up here on the promos.
He's moving up my rankings in 2 weeks. He's moving right up here.
Look out, Mike Sharp.
Yeah, he might be. He's probably around number 9 at this point.
So at least he surpassed Tommy Rich anyway.
Tommy Rich was 10. He passed Tommy Rich, yes.
So Michael Hayes referencing an old friendship that he had with Sistrunk going back 3 years ago, and they've kind of rekindled their friendship here now that Sistrunk is in the Georgia territory. They met in a bar in Oakland, he said. Yeah, they did. I don't know what Michael Hayes was doing out there, but I can't really deny that actually happened. We go off to a VTR back earlier this week to Columbus, Georgia. We see a 2-on-1 beatdown. It's Gordy and Snuka taking down Michael Hayes when out of nowhere, Otis Sistrunk to make the save, clearing the ring as the heels bumping like champs, no pun intended, Snuka and Gordy bumping from the ring, Otis Sistrunk and Michael Hayes standing tall.
Even I have to admit, for as much as I love Otis Sistrunk now, that was rough to watch.
It was. Thank God. You have Snuka and Gordy, and they're bumping like madmen for him. Just you didn't have time to question how ridiculous the headbutts or whatever the hell those were supposed to be.
Talking about exposing the business. I mean, They were the worst, like shoulder blocks. I guess.
Sure.
It wasn't even a forearm. It was both arms going right into him. Like he was blocking on the offensive line or defensive line.
Yeah, these are must-watch episodes of TV. I certainly encourage everybody to head over to YouTube and check those out. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen other football players who weren't this bad in the ring, anyway.
No, definitely not. It wouldn't be hard to be better. That's for sure. As we continue on tag team action, Brian Blair and Steve-O teaming once again this week, taking on the team of French Angel and Mike Sharp. As I wrote, a definition of a back-and-forth match here. The baby faces trying to wrestle, the heels looking to take some shortcuts to gain control. Good wrestling by Steve-O and Brian Blair. Good clubbing by Mike Sharp and Frank Morrell. Lots of grunting from Sharp in this match as well, I noted here. As Steve-O going to find himself in a little bit of trouble, but he tags to Brian Blair, who was like a buzzsaw all over Mike Sharp with a myriad of elbow, leg, and knee drops, but Sharp somehow kicking out of all of that, and with authority. Upset here is Iron Mike. The Angel going to tag in, but he takes a couple of backdrops by the baby faces, leading to the epic four-way melee Doom as the referee, Nick Patrick, forced to call for the bell. Nobody adhering to his authority. This one going to be a double disqualification for some reason. Match goes 6 minutes and 42 seconds.
I mean, very, very interesting here. I mean, we had Sharp last week.
Yeah.
Misbehaving. Now, there was no real post-match antics here, except for the wildness continued. But, Sharp's coming off as a guy that ain't going to take no crap right now.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, especially given his future in the world of wrestling as far as,
yes.
I don't want to say he's refusing to do jobs, but maybe he's just not happy with his position here. It's hard to say, but again, double disqualification just seems like an odd position for the teams involved because Steve-O's, he's been every champion there could be here in the state of Georgia in the last year. And Brian Blair, newcomer, he's been getting a little bit of a push. I don't see why the Angel couldn't have done the job here. So just a really odd choice of a finish. But we'll have to see how that goes on.
And you know what's interesting? You got the marriage of Steve-O and Mike Sharp here.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I've been doing a little research for 1984, looking ahead. And both Steve-O and Mike Sharp are back in Georgia again in 1984.
Oh, yeah, good call.
And have a minor program against each other on the house shows.
Yeah, what can you say? Not much. As we roll on, if you didn't have enough of them earlier, they're back out for more, guys. Michael Hayes and his new partner, Otis Sistrunk.
Standing athletes, and as we said earlier, well, there you hear it. That music denotes one thing and one thing only. The emergence onto the set now of the fabulous Freebird, Michael Hayes. And with him, of course, Otis Sistrunk, who has to be a legend in his own time in professional athletics.
I feel good. I do feel good. I feel like something is finally going to go exactly how I want it,
Well, I'm glad that you feel that confident, Mr. Hayes. I might just say that in the years of watching this man perform as a professional athlete, I have developed the utmost respect for Mr. Sistrunk.
Well, I might not be a professional wrestler, but when I was on the field, I was the man. And I will be the man at the Omni. And I want you to know it.
Well, certainly, first of all,
He's the man anywhere he goes.
Well, I was just going to say that...
not just the Omni. I mean,
anywhere this gentleman wants to go...
Huntington, West Virginia, New York, anywhere he wants to be the man, he's going to be the man.
Well, talking about things, what about tonight, Columbus, Ohio?
Tonight in Columbus, Ohio, we're going to go back up, and for the first time, I'm going to check out and see if Ohio can party like they said, because they're going to open up the town for Fantasia. And I got a lot on the line, but you can believe it. Fantasia gonna rock and roll and strut and stroll all the way back down here. All the way back down until my night. That's tomorrow night. Because there's a cage, and I do like to get wild, and I do have animalistic characteristics. Whoa, can you say that? And I'm going to turn myself loose. Just like a super freak. Y'all understand that, baby? Yeah, I'm talking about a super freak. The kind you don't take home to mama. But there's one thing I'm going to take home to mama, and he's going to take it too, and you can bet your last dollar on it. That's that Georgia belt. Because if I don't take it, then I'll just go on and get out of here.
In a steel cage tomorrow night at the Omni.
So I like how they were just out here a little bit ago, Jammie, cutting a promo, but now Michael Hayes returns for a second interview with theme music this time. And boy, just looking at these two standing side by side, talk about a contrast here. As these guys, they go together like Mutt and Jeff, like Felix and Oscar, like oil and water. As Michael Hayes says, he's a super freak. Super freak. He's super freaky. Meow.
That was great. Only Michael Hayes can pull something off like that.
Yeah. So Hayes making a bold statement here, though, Jammie. See, he says out of the blue that if he doesn't take the titles in the Omni, he'll just get out of here. He'll leave town. This is the last dance, perhaps, for Michael Hayes in the state of Georgia. And Otis Sistrunk here as his partner. I don't know if I'd make that statement with his brand new partner here in Otis Sistrunk, but Michael Hayes basically saying, hey, this has gone on long enough, and if I can't get the job done this time, I'm leaving town.
Michael Hayes is a stand-up guy, and that's the way he felt. But, yeah, I don't know if I'd have made that same statement with Otis as my partner.
Yeah, the stakes are higher than ever, looking to sell a few more tickets there to the Omni card for sure. Michael Hayes, maybe he has an inkling of the finish upcoming there at the Omni, but we'll have to wait and see what happens inside the cage. Right now, we go back to the ring for Tor Kamata with manager Great Mephisto. Kamata taking on Denny Brown, and he's going to attack Denny to start out the matchup. Now, Denny, give him credit. He fights back, lands a trifecta of drop kicks, all of which Kamata no-sells. And I don't mean he doesn't bump, guys. I mean he literally no-sells all three drop kicks, as we see a jumping karate kick to follow there by Kamata, sending Brown to the outside, and then a pretty cool suplex into a slam. Got to bring Denny back in the ring, and then, oh my God, he picks him up for another suplex, and then tosses him into the corner, slams Denny Brown into the turnbuckles. I couldn't believe it. I wrote, poor Denny, before the camel clutch is applied, and Tor Kamata locking in deep, hooking back, making Denny Brown humble, and scoring the win. Match goes 3 minutes and 33 seconds, but how about that suplex toss into the corner?
I think Denny's still feeling the effects of that one.
Yeah, that was
as a matter of fact, Denny Brown's actually a super cool dude. I know you never made it to any of the CWF Legend Fan Fest, but he showed up at two or three of the ones that I was at.
Okay, and
he was really a cool guy.
Yeah, very cool. I just, here he's very green to the business, and we know he's going to go on to get those NWA Junior title runs and whatnot, but just a sick move here. Kamata taking advantage of his opponent, picking him up in a suplex, and then just launching him, tossing him like in a slam, but upside down in the corner. Could have broke his neck. Just a very dangerous
I've never
move.
seen anything like that before.
That's just called, I don't give a shit what happens to you.
Yeah, he was being very reckless in that one.
So we've seen Kamata in action. Now we go off to Gordon Soley standing by with the Great Mephisto and his man, Tor Kamata. Gordon apparently been drinking again, Jammie, as he claims it was a combination. Yeah, the finisher was a combination camel clutch / Russian sickle, Gordon calls it here. And I rewound this matchup, Jammie, and nothing special. It was just a camel clutch, best I could see.
Well, sometimes Gordon sees what he wants to see.
Yeah, so a combination camel clutch and what he calls a Russian sickle, whatever that would have been in 1981. As Tor, he uses so many finishers, Mephisto says it confuses his opponents. They can never figure him out. Mephisto, he wants integrity and honesty. In his country, liars and thieves are dealt with severely, and Abdullah the Butcher falls into that category. A turncoat that will pay in the Omni. Old-fashioned Arab justice, says the Great Mephisto.
Where was Mephisto supposedly from?
Hell if I know.
Just the Middle East somewhere.
Based on that accent, I have no idea.
Well, wasn't he actually, and again, I'm drawing a blank, wasn't he Frankie Kane?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I do have the right guy. I was getting a little confused there.
Yeah, Mephisto's definitely Frankie Kane. Obviously, most of the stuff when he was in his prime, it doesn't exactly exist, so it's hard to go by. Bob Roop puts him over as one of the greatest heels of all time. He has a great book, does Frankie Kane. I encourage anybody to go out and read that from Scott Teal about the great Mephisto's run in the world of wrestling. Gary Hart, he's spoken a little bit about Mephisto in the past as well. So, very well liked, by the boys, and he didn't take no crap from many of the promoters. But here in 1981, I'm not really sure what's going on with him. I'm not really super impressed with the situation he's in right now. And again, I go back to this, I guess you would call it an accent. I just can't figure out what it is. Lots of rolling R's. That's all I got. As we go back once again, we saw a little bit earlier with the attack and the Otis Sistrunk save at Columbus, Georgia. They had the tape machines rolling that night as we get, holy cow, Tommy Rich versus the Superstar, national champion, in a lumberjack match. And we talked about the results earlier in the week. We're going to see Tommy Rich come out and join Gordon for voiceover work for the matchup. As awesome arena action here for anybody who likes to watch just some great competitive wrestling matches. Go and check this out. Lots of the match shown here. And we'll talk about that at the end of the matchup. Now, just some of the highlights. Superstar going to miss a crossbody attempt, and Tommy Rich going to capitalize with his abdominal stretch that he's been using as of late as a finisher. Now, they wind up near the ropes. Superstar able to dump Rich out through the ropes. And while Tommy fights off the likes of Tor Kamata outside on the floor, remember this is a lumberjack match, guys, we see Ray Stevens, another lumberjack, toss a foreign object in to the Superstar to use. And use it he does, Jammie. Clocks Tommy Rich, down goes the Wildfire, and the Masked Man making the cover to steal the win, retaining the title. So, man, 12 minutes shown of this lumberjack match. Unbelievable.
It was 12 minutes. I actually timed that out myself. But the whole purpose of this, as we will, spoiler, get into, Superstar's getting ready to go to Japan, and they're setting up Ray Stevens as Tommy's next challenger. That was the whole purpose of this. But the MVP of this match wasn't Tommy Rich. It wasn't Ray Stevens. It wasn't the Masked Superstar. The MVP of this match, the hardest working man in this match, was Michael P.S. Hayes in the back left of the screen cheering on Tommy. The man was everywhere. He was pounding the ring, getting the audience to stand up to get behind Tommy. Go back and watch it and just look in the back left-hand corner at Michael Hayes the whole time. The man was awesome in this.
Can't say he wasn't a trooper here for the company, that's for sure. Michael Hayes playing the babyface part very well, supporting Tommy Rich here, a fellow babyface at this point. And I wrote, 12 minutes of the match shown, but that also meant 12 minutes of Tommy Rich on commentary. So
that's why you got to watch Michael Hayes, so you kind of
take the good with the bad. Exactly. Tommy Rich, though, he does say he's not done with the Superstar after that. You better believe it. As post-match, we see Tommy go berserk on the Masked Man, pounding away and ripping the mask off of Superstar. Tommy Rich says he's collecting masks now, and he's coming again for the national champion.
Yeah, and the interview after he puts the mask on is actually pretty funny.
Oh, it's great stuff. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know he was going to do that, so I thought that was a great screen clip. I did grab that cap. As you pointed it out, Tommy Rich continues on after the video is done. Rich has another surprise for the Superstar as he unwinds the tape from his injured hand. Got news for you, Superstar. It's all healed up, and Tommy Rich ready for the Omni Texas street fight. I think I would have left the tape on, Tommy, but Tommy Rich here, even putting on the golden mask, as you mentioned, which he stole, if you ask me, from the dual champion, Mr. Edie.
And back to the Superstar, now we have the gold mask, we've had the red mask, we've had the teal mask, we've had the black mask. He's got more masks than Mil Mascaras.
Yeah, he's getting close. He's certainly getting up there in the different style of masks, and several of them have been pretty damn cool looking, that's for sure.
Yeah, I always loved the Superstar mask. I wish I had been at the CWF Fan Fest in which Edie was there, because he was taking pictures with people putting on the Superstar mask. He would have it on and somebody else would have it on.
Oh, that's very cool of him.
I met him one time. I don't know if I told a story on here. Him and Darso were doing an independent show.
Oh, okay.
And we went to it. And I went over and I started talking to both of them, telling them I appreciated their work over the years. And talking to Darso about, he said he actually ended up working 11 different characters in his wrestling career. And then I said to Bill Edie, I said, my favorite of yours was the Superstar. And he said, if you ever see that son of a bitch, he owes me $5,000.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Kayfabe, brother.
Yeah, kayfabe, brother.
Yeah.
But he was very nice and grateful. Then tried to hawk his, wanted me to buy a $100 mask. But
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I carry $100 with me when I go to a local indie show.
Well, can't blame him for trying.
He tried, yes.
So the Superstar Tommy Rich feud will continue on. It looks like Tommy's going to have issues with Ray Stevens. Let's not forget, you pointed that out. It was Stevens who threw the foreign object to the Superstar, so he's playing in as well. So we'll have to see what happens with that in the upcoming weeks. We go back to the ring, though, for Mr. Wrestling 2, taking on Don Gilbert. And in recent weeks, we've seen a lot of that cross arm breaker finisher from Wrestling 2, but this week, it's a basic squash as we get a pair of lightning quick knee lifts from Mr. Wrestling. Going to score the win in just 1 minute and 47 seconds. And then we get a promo after the matchup from the upcoming World Championship challenger as well. Tomorrow night, it's the Omni Grumpy Grandpa #2 coming for the Nature Boy Ric Flair and that world title. Man, I hope his wife doesn't make Ric Flair's robes because this could be awkward.
But what a great way to get 2 over in that match by having Lightning strike with the 2 straight knee lifts and the pin.
Yeah, and he's been doing that arm breaker for several weeks now. So just in case you guys forgot, he's always got those knee lifts in the pocket.
It's not his first time getting a title shot. He's due.
Yeah, definitely, especially here in the state of Georgia. Wrestling 2 coming for the Nature Boy tomorrow night. And speaking of the Nature Boy, well, we saw the challenger. Now we head back to the ring for the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Ric Flair, in the ring, taking on Terry Flynn. We're short on time here in hour 1, Jammie, so Ric Flair pretty quick here with a vertical suplex. And then he locks in the figure 4 from what Gordon Soley calls the wrong side. Match goes 45 seconds. I got to ask you, Jammie, how do you hook a move from the wrong side? Is one leg stronger than the other? Like, what is the story here that there's a wrong side to apply the figure 4 from a kayfabe point of view?
I don't know. I thought I always did it from the left side, but I guess I didn't. But I watched the Jack Briscoe match earlier on today, and Briscoe. So why is Gordon, with all the matches he's seen at Jack Briscoe, why is he doing this wrong side thing? I wonder if maybe it was a rib on Ric Flair. I
don't know what the rib is. I don't understand.
Maybe that he's doing it wrong. I don't know. But the important part here is 2 weeks in a row, you got the NWA World Champion on Georgia Championship Wrestling. Actually, technically, 4 weeks in a row, we got the NWA World Champion.
Well, yeah, if
on
you're
Georgia
counting Dusty Rhodes
Wrestling.
as well, you're right, yeah.
Right. You had 2 Dusty and now 2 with Ric Flair back-to-back, showing the importance of the world title and having him make his first appearance on television in the ring.
So we close out hour 1 with a quick Ric Flair squash and a very brief Nature Boy promo. But then we kick off hour number 2, once again, the NWA World Champion, Ric Flair.
Right now, it's my pleasure and honor to bring out here to the microphone the NWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion, known as the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
You still have a bad habit. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for you. You're far and away one of the greatest wrestling announcers in the world today. But when you start mentioning the great individual wrestlers that are going to be on this program, Gordon, you have to remember to start out with my name. I realize that after they hear my name, nothing else means anything, but being the world champion, I'd appreciate it if in the future, if you start reading down the list of wrestlers to be on this program, you make my name number 1.
Well, obviously, he is the number 1 wrestler in the world today. He is the World Heavyweight Champion. Let me just say, too, about this man, Mr. Ric Flair. Here is a man who, as I've mentioned before, had all of the opportunities afforded him in life that he could possibly want. He had his choice of any career. As a youngster, his parents are extremely wealthy. He did not go to high school. He went on to a private academy. From there on to the University of Minnesota. He was sought after by many of the Big Ten colleges, the University of Wisconsin, University of Michigan, Minnesota, and others. He chose Minnesota and has chosen the hard and arduous life of a professional wrestler over careers that could have been a lot easier, Mr. Flair.
Well, life was mine to do with as I wanted. And as you said earlier, I could have been anything I wanted to be. The fact that I attended a private school and went to the University of Minnesota would definitely indicate that I'm one of the more intelligent athletes in sports today. But I chose professional wrestling because I felt that wrestling, as anybody out there watching TV knows today, is the most competitive sport in the world today. Wrestling, the greatest sport. And Ric Flair didn't buy this, Gordon Soley, like he buys his Cadillacs and his clothes and his $9,000 or $10,000 robes, which look real nice compared to that funky thing Tommy Rich is wearing over there. Ric Flair went out and earned this. Dusty Rhodes, a legend in his own time, one of the greatest wrestlers to ever come along, went down to the hands of Ric Flair. That should say enough right there. And you saw a minute ago a young man that thought he wanted to be a pro wrestler, typical of the wrestlers here in Georgia, running his mouth, wanted to get in the ring with the world champion, and you saw what I had to do to him.
Well, now, just a moment. You see, I saw what you had to do to him. It was quite obvious. The man's knee has been injured. I heard it pop from over here.
Well, you're going to hear a lot more knees pop. There's a lot of guys coming along today that just think they want to be in the ring with Ric Flair. When you get up in the morning, you got to be 120% mentally and 200% physically to get in the ring with Ric Flair. I'm no fly-by-night, ladies and gentlemen. You're looking at the greatest wrestler of all time. You take all the names, Thez, Briscoe, Funk, Kaniski, Rhodes, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Wrestling 2. Take all the great names, put them all together, and maybe, just maybe, they'd come up this short of being Ric Flair. In the years past, I've come out here to recognize and know, in fact, that I'm the most gorgeous human being on the face of this earth. That I wear the finest clothes, the prettiest jewelry, and wherever I go, any woman I want. Just like that. Now, this rounds out the whole situation. The one trophy, believe me, Gordon Soley, when I say this, the one trophy that any man in the world would like to have, because this is on an individual basis. There's no team behind me. I went out and did this alone. The one trophy that means more than any other trophy in all of sports. The National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight title is mine. Woo! And the Nature Boy is going to keep it for a long, long time. Get used to it, believe it, know it, and ladies, love it, because there's only one Ric Flair. Woo!
There is indeed. There's no question about that. Ric Flair, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
All right, so we closed hour one. There was a brief Flair promo there, but we open hour two, and the Nature Boy right back out here, given more time to cut a promo here alongside Gordon Soley. But I found it funny because Ric Flair wrestles. He cuts the promo post-match. We go off to the scoreboard for 5 minutes, and when we return, Ric Flair is in his robe for a brand new episode of Georgia Championship Wrestling. Got to get that robe over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And maybe here again, like I was saying about the last show, maybe this is where syndication starts.
Oh, I'm totally in agreement with that, but I found it comical because he wrestles and then he puts his robe on 5 minutes later. It's just funny to me.
Well, he might have been getting a chill, so he had to put the robe on to warm up. Maybe they had the AC cranking in the studio.
Air conditioned here, lovely WTBS studios.
You know, they got to keep it cold to keep Gordon awake. If you let the temperature get up too high, Gordon might nod out at the microphone.
Well, Ric Flair out here, and he is upset that Gordon Soley began to run down a list of names at the top of this hour, and none of them was the Nature Boy. Ric Flair says not only should he be on the list, but he should be number one because he is the NWA World Champion. I wrote good promo from beginning to end here with Ric Flair as he reassures everyone that he can have anything he wants and any woman in the world he wants, just like that. Woo! And this
is the Ric Flair national wise. I mean, I know Mid-Atlantic was getting to see this side for years, but this is the Ric Flair that the rest of us are going to get to know for the next 30 years.
Yeah, he's certainly adapted very well to this character. It took it up another notch in recent months, did he? Especially, I mean, he won that gold, and he's really living the part at this point in real life and on TV. But the Nature Boy, the new NWA World Champion, going to wrestle Mr. Wrestling 2 at the Omni And it won't be long to figure out who wins that one. But right now we continue on. More action in the ring. Wildfire Tommy Rich taking on Professor Sonoda. As we get a great TV-style match here. Tommy Rich going to dominate the majority of the match, but Sonoda gets plenty enough offense in to keep it competitive. Tommy finally able to lock in the abdominal stretch and force the submission, even adding in a little elbow grind into the rib cage area there. Love that extra little aggressiveness of Tommy Rich. Going to score the win. 5 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, very good television match. And you have to have these. I mean, I know we're joking around a lot with these matches, but this is what you have to do. You have to, Sonoda does have a little bit of a name. You got to give him a little bit of offense in there, and it makes Tommy look even that much better when he comes out victorious at the end of the match.
Yeah, and a submission win over a fairly decent name in Sonoda there, so you don't see that every week on TV. Getting Tommy Rich over, but getting that finisher over as well. As we roll on now, we're going to go off to the national champion. And we're going to hear, once again, from the superstar.
Let me take a moment now to talk to the superstar.
Tommy Rich is a very, very confident young man. There's a lot of commotion going on here. Mr. Popularity, well known all over the United States. Wrestling 2, Michael Hayes. All these people, they get me sick because this is not a popularity contest, Rich. This is professional wrestling, a very, very brutal sport. And you seem to forget the fact that I'm the champion and you're not. I don't like the idea of him coming out here and giving a cheap imitation of me. You had one successful evening in your entire wrestling career. Wrestling number 2 comes out here, Michael Hayes. All these people constantly complaining about they want this and they want that. Don't be a cheerleader over there. This is insulting to me. I'm coming out here trying to carry on an intelligent conversation. I have to deal with illiterate people like him standing over there and being a cheerleader.
May I suggest we talk first of all about wrestling in Columbus tonight at the Ohio.
I'm going to be in Columbus tonight, and I'm going to start where I left off. Tomorrow night, Tommy Rich, you and I are going to get involved in a battle right here in the Omni. A Texas street fight you want. No rules. Anything goes. We can bring anything. This belt's not at stake. And he's out here ranting and raving about the fact that you got one of my masks. Well, for tomorrow night here in the Omni, you come after this mask. You preoccupy yourself with the fact that you want to take this mask off, and I'll preoccupy myself with the fact that I'm going to teach you a lesson. And these people right here, all of your fans, well, if you don't want to hear it, you're going to see it. You're going to see what I'm going to do to Tommy Rich right here tomorrow night. I'm going to take that face of yours and rub it in the mat and bounce it off of one of those posts.
Tickets are on sale at all seats locations in the Omni.
All right, so Superstar argues with Tommy Rich as he leaves ringside there, hyping the upcoming Texas street fight. Once again, Superstar urging Rich to be preoccupied with his mask while he mangles the Wildfire and retains the title.
And once again, as you pointed out earlier on, they seem to make a habit of these two guys after they wrestle the other guys out there.
And this isn't the first week it's happened either.
No, it's happened constantly since they started feuding back in August.
You'd think somebody would learn not to book these two back-to-back, but it's almost like they want this to happen. I don't know.
I'm sure it's just a mistake on matchmaker George Scott's part.
There you go. Blame George Scott, guys. As we continue on, Georgia Tag Team Champions in the ring, Gordy and Snuka taking on Deke Rivers and George Wells. Egads.
Yeah, before you get into covering this,
yeah,
this tells you all you need to know about George Wells from here on out. Because this is the first time they've treated him in this manner.
Yep, totally. When I saw this, I said, oh, I see the writing on the wall here. As Wells, he's looking great against Jimmy Snuka early on, even rolling through a Superfly body block. But the Baby Huey chants begin for the fans, and Gordy tags in to maul poor Deke Rivers here. The champion's going to dominate for several minutes before Deke finally able to crawl over and make the hot tag back to George Wells. And Wells comes in, takes over on Gordy, but he makes the mistake of tagging back to Deke Rivers, who eats a Gordy Samoan drop and the Superfly splash. Champion's going over here, 5 minutes and 52 seconds.
But they must like Deke Rivers because he's going to have a nice long run here as enhancement.
He's a pretty good sized guy.
Yeah, he is. So, and we're going to see him, I think, into 83. Not every week, but more often than not.
He's hanging around the parking lot. We'll use him when we need him. I get it. Well, maybe that's Memphis. as we continue on.
You know he got at least $10 for this. In Memphis, you're on there just for the exposure.
Yeah, you're paying the $10 more than likely.
Yeah, exactly. You're paying Jared $10 to go into that studio, or Eddie Marlin, whoever happens to be the guy that comes out to get you that day.
Yeah, whoever's hanging by the door, exactly. As we see the champions score the win there, Jamie, we also hear from them talking with Gordon Solie. It's Gordy and Snuka, final hard sell perhaps for the Omni here. They see that Otis Sistrunk is going to be Michael Hayes' partner here for the big steel cage match. And, of course, we go back and relive that video footage, Sistrunk cleaning house. Why they would show that again, I have no idea, but they do. And the heels, they're looking for revenge. Gordy says he's going to do the people a favor and get rid of Michael Hayes in the cage at the Omni. Could this be the end of Michael Hayes?
I certainly hope not. This podcast is over. I quit if Michael Hayes loses and has to leave Georgia because there's no sense of going on without Michael Hayes.
Jamie Ward adding stipulations to this match at this point. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out here in a few moments. Right now, it's back to the ring for tag team action. Tor Kamata and Ray Stevens, a couple of those lumberjacks in that match, aiding the superstar in the win. Here, they're going to take on Bobby Garrett and Mike Fever. And the duo accompanied to the ring by the great Mephisto. So perhaps Mephisto now also in cahoots with the Crippler. And then we also see, oddly, the Masked Superstar lurking around ringside. Not necessarily at ringside, but kind of lurking around the studio. As the match gets going, I wrote, it's constant movement by the heels as they just dominate the matchup. Ray Stevens with the pile driver again, scoring the win on Mike Fever. Match goes 2 minutes and 27 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, great way to put those two guys over. Plus, Superstar, we were just talking about mask. He's got a cool orange mask this week.
Yeah, he's not running out of him anytime soon. You got to love him. As we go on, I don't know how many of these we need, but we get it again. Michael Hayes and Otis Sistrunk out to talk to Gordon Solie. So earlier, Sistrunk referred to Hayes as Rick. And Otis catching on to this RASSLIN lingo as he starts off with, let me tell you something here in this promo. I was kind of impressed. Let me tell you something, before referring to Gordon Solie simply as Gordy. Let me tell you something, Gordy.
I thought Gordon was actually going to hit him after that one.
What did you call me?
His glasses almost popped off from the eyes popping out of his head.
Unbelievable. You can call Michael Hayes Rick all you want, but don't call me Gordy.
Come on. Otis Sistrunk just moved up to the 8th position. There's an update for you, Ray.
You know, he's in my top 10 at this point. But I got to tell you, it's kind of funny because, you know, they're working with Terry Gordy, so I wondered, was it a complete mistake? You know, he called Michael Hayes Rick. Now, was he talking to Terry Gordy backstage and he called Gordon the wrong name? Or, obviously, Gordon being Gordy, maybe, you know, I guess is the way we got to look at it here. But it's still funny. Every time Otis is out here, it's something new. As he claims Gordy and Snuka called him a boy earlier in their promo. I must have missed that. He says, well, he's not a boy. He's a man. And to prove it, he has Michael Hayes blast him over a head here with a steel chair. Completely no-selling a chair shot is Otis Sistrunk. So the only thing that proves to me is CTE, Jamie.
Yeah, I would guess so. You were doing much more damage than he'd already suffered. And
yeah,
but Gordy calls everybody boy. So yeah. You might have just missed it. It's a common term for him to use.
Right. That's right, boy. Yeah, Gordy. Yeah, that's just one of his typical words in the end of his sentences. But I get what you're saying there. I just totally missed where he was going with that. I mean, I saw where he was going with it, but Otis Sistrunk says, I ain't no boy. I'm a man. And to prove it, Jamie, I'm going to have Michael Hayes smash me over the head with a chair. Interesting way to prove your manlyhood, especially when you have all these teenage backyarders doing a lot worse than that to each other.
Yeah, I can remember watching this with my dad, and he hadn't seen that Otis was into wrestling yet. And he was like, that's Otis Sistrunk? What in the world is he doing wrestling? He'll actually kill one of these guys.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. My dad was behind Otis and was very disappointed soon.
Yes, I see where you're going with that. You know, one of the greatest tag teams in the current product here in Georgia for the last couple of weeks anyway has been Steve-O and Brian Blair. Now, they've gotten the job done.
Personality 1 and 2.
Yeah, they could don some masks like the Killer Bees and be the Mr. Personalities. I would buy that. They wouldn't even need numbers because they are just that cool. But it's Brian Blair and Steve-O, and they're back out here for, I think, the 3rd time in 2 weeks now, taking on Rick Ferreira and Ken Timms this time around. Brian Blair going to land a dropkick on Ferreira early on as Rick goes for his Boston Crab, but Brian immediately countering out. So much for that as a finisher, Ferreira. Steve-O landing a shoulder breaker on Ken Timms, getting himself a 2 count as the babyface is going to then work the arm of Timms. Blair, though, caught in the wrong corner, and the heel's going to take over. Doesn't last long, though. Brian Blair coming back with an airplane spin, tagging to Steve-O, who comes off the top rope, and it's back to that damn double chop thingy. Going to give Steve and Brian Blair the win. Match goes 3 minutes and 38 seconds.
I'm telling you, this is how Steve-O became the Ninja. Vern remembered watching Georgia Championship Wrestling, and when he needed a ninja type character, he remembered Steve-O doing that karate.
Hey, you did that double chop thingy, right? Yeah, okay. You're the ninja. Gotcha.
See? That's exactly how he got the job.
Good skills. I thought he was called the ninja because nobody realized he was there. But we'll continue on here. Promo time. Mr. Wrestling 2 talking with Gordon Solie. He says, say what you think. That's what Wrestling 2 does, damn it. That's how you get over, Jammie, does the masked man here. He talks to Mr. Ric Flair. He says he showed us a hold earlier. Well, number 2, he also has a hold to show the Nature Boy. As we go back to the ring for Mr. Wrestling 2, taking on Don Forrester. Forrester going to attack the masked man. And all that does is piss off Grumpy Grandpa as the action continues on. Lots of short knee lifts in between working the arm. Cross arm breaker going to get the quick win here for the masked man. Match only goes 1 minute and 9 seconds, and it takes a minute to get Wrestling 2 to even release the arm breaker, showing his killer instinct and what Gordon calls a mean streak leading into his world title match.
I mean, very well done. 2 is definitely a threat. When you see this, he could end Ric Flair's title reign just like that. It would be over if he can nail him with a knee lift and get him into that armbar.
Yeah, good call. He's got a good setup move leading to that submission hold. So they both have a submission hold walking into this match at the Omni. Going to be interesting to see the finish to that one. But right now we got a couple of segments left here on Georgia TV, including an interview with the Great Mephisto, Tor Kamata, and Ray the Crippler Stevens. And Stevens, well, we saw him wrestle not that long ago on the show, but he's already back in a suit, taking his professionalism seriously here. Talks about his alliance with the superstar. And if Tommy Rich has an issue with him, come see him. Ray Stevens making no bones about it. I ain't afraid of you, Tommy Rich.
Yeah, setting things up there. And I always love, especially a heel in a suit. It just made him even look more badass.
Yeah, more classy, more above everyone else, and just awesome to see Ray Stevens. He didn't go throw a T-shirt on. He finished wrestling, and he got himself all dudded up here. So curious to know what he went and did after this in the middle of the day in a suit, but who knows? We got
a lot of bars in Atlanta.
There certainly are. And we got one more match here before we close the show, a standby match, and we can finally fit him on TV. Feels like forever. I'm talking about the Oates brothers, Ted and Jerry Oates in here, taking on another pair of brothers in Jim and Bruce Gallagher. So it's the Oates versus the Gallaghers right here on TV, brothers versus brothers. And it's not exactly the Briscoes versus the Funks, but still kind of unique as we see a double back suplex here from the Oates and Jerry locking in that spinning toe hold, getting the submission win for the Oates team. Match goes 4 minutes, 56 seconds.
Yeah, thinking about it, I don't think we've seen the Oates since
the Freebirds?
Early July. Well, or actually June, when DiBiase was preparing to meet Dusty.
Toward Dusty, yeah, okay. I didn't
and
remember them.
They were involved in that training session.
Were they? Okay.
Or at least Jerry was, maybe not Ted. But that's the last time we saw any Oates.
On TV? Wow.
We haven't even seen Hall Oates.
Yeah, wow.
We haven't even seen any of them.
That's a man-eater right there. As looks like we got a promo here to close out the show. Ric Flair out one final time. The hard sell for the Omni, the NWA World Champion. Ric Flair selling that main event, double main event, really. It's going to be Flair taking on Mr. Wrestling 2, if you guys don't know by now, and of course the big cage match. We'll get to all of that in just a moment. But before we do that, real quick, some house show results from September 26th later in the evening. The Ohio Center, Columbus, going to see Ray Stevens and Tor Kamata over Wrestling 2 and Steve-O. Also, Terry Gordy defeating George Wells, the Superstar over Brian Blair, Michael Hayes scoring a win over Jimmy Snuka, and world champion Ric Flair coming to town to score a win over Tommy Rich. And based on what we've been getting in Columbus again as of late, this kind of felt lackluster to me, and I'm sorry to say that based on we have a world title match here. But in general, just seeing Superstar in there with Brian Blair, Terry Gordy in there with George Wells, I don't know, it just felt like it was missing something. No Brody, no Andre, no Dusty to liven things up. Just felt a little flat for me.
Yeah, it wasn't what they've been, what the Columbus fans had been accustomed to.
Right.
Much better cards. But I guess sometimes you got to take a step back to advance. So that would be my only guess there.
There you go. So we go from September 26th in Columbus, Ohio, to a special Sunday card in Columbus, Georgia. September 27th, matinee show. Going to see Brian Blair over Professor Sonoda. Ray the Crippler Stevens defeat George Wells. And here we go. It's Bruno Jr. over Mike Sharp on a DQ. Wrestling 2 over Tor Kamata on a DQ. Tommy Rich defeating the Superstar on a DQ. And then in the main event, Michael Hayes and Otis Sistrunk, from what I can tell, making his Georgia debut. They team up to score a win over Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka, no doubt practicing a few things before we get to the Omni.
Oh, most definitely. That might have been why they had the special Sunday card, just so, again, we don't know how far in advance this was booked, but I'm sure they added that match just so that they could practice for the evening session. And I heard your voice there, not too thrilled about the 3 DQs in a row.
Yeah.
But I think the lot of, whether it be Memphis, Southeastern, Florida, Mid-South, Georgia,
the Southern Territories.
The Southern Territories. I think they were programmed to see a lot of DQs on the smaller house shows.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. It just felt like
too much. But I don't know why you would have had a DQ with Bruno Sammartino and Mike Sharp.
We go back to Mike Sharp, though.
Sense.
We've been questioning Mike Sharp's booking lately, or at least how he's been addressing it. And then he goes in here with Bruno, and they do a DQ instead of Sharp just taking the loss.
It should have been a double DQ. However, we got George Wells losing. I mean, it doesn't look good for Mike Sharp. It hasn't for like the last month or so. Hasn't looked too good for him. I mean, he has turned into what Jim Duggan was earlier in the year.
Right.
Starts with the push and then takes that slow fall backwards.
All right, guys, I know we're running long, but we only got one more show for you here, Jamie, and that is September 27th, later in the evening at the Omni in Atlanta. Going to look at the card right now.
Attention wrestling fans, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, the Omni in Atlanta. Such stars as Steve-O, Iron Mike Sharp, George Wells, Brian Blair, Ray Stevens against Bruno Sammartino Jr., Abdullah the Butcher against Tor Kamata, managed by the great Mephisto, Texas Street Fight, the Superstar against Tommy Wildfire Rich, for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, the new champion against Mr. Wrestling number 2, and in a cage match, no disqualification, Michael Hayes and Otis Sistrunk against Snuka and Gordy tomorrow night.
It's Brian St. John still here over Rick Ferreira, George Wells defeating Mike Sharp, Steve-O teaming with Brian Blair. We've seen a lot of that. They're going to pick up a win here over the French Angel and Professor Sonoda. Ray the Crippler Stevens over Bruno Sammartino Jr. It's Tor Kamata going to a double disqualification with Abdullah the Butcher. We'll come back to that one. Tommy Rich scoring a win over the Superstar in a Texas Street Fight. NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair picking up a win over Mr. Wrestling 2. And in the main event, steel cage match. Georgia tag team titles on the line. If Michael Hayes loses, he's leaving town, guys. Well, you don't
am I.
And so is Jamie Ward. So let's see what happens here. Well, looks like we're saved. Everyone can rest assured, Jamie Ward, you will return. Because believe it or not, it is Michael Hayes and Otis Sistrunk, the brand new Georgia tag team champions, having defeated the team of Superfly Jimmy Snuka and Terry Gordy.
Yes.
I don't know
well, we knew this
where
was
we're going to get.
Happen. It was only inevitable. I mean, Snuka and Gordy had to lose anyway. I imagine Kevin, even if Kevin was in the match, they were getting the belts this night.
Yeah, I know the legend of Otis Sistrunk, so I knew the finish of this before we got here, obviously. But at the same time, it's unbelievable that this guy walks in and basically his first day in the ring in Georgia, because I think he might have had a match for Crockett or something like that before this, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? I
think
never heard that.
It's either before or after this. I can't recall, but I think it was before this. Yeah, so Otis, though, coming to town, and basically we've seen him on TV. He did a couple promos, if you want to call it that, and he did that run-in that one night in Columbus, Georgia. He returns there in that tag team matchup. earlier in the day, and here he is in the steel cage in his same day, his debut date in the company, in the ring, and he picks up the tag team titles alongside Michael Hayes. So long run, great run by Gordy and Snuka, and of all the teams they wrestled, this was the least likely I thought would take the belts, but we are here.
Yeah, we would have never seen this one coming, but the bad part about this is I believe this is the end of the Superfly.
Is it really? Okay, well, you know what?
I mean, we'll find out. He might have another week of house shows, but I think this is the end of him.
You know, and that's kind of interesting. I think he goes and follows George Scott. Yeah, it is the fall. He's going to go follow George Scott and try to go make the Tri-States area happen for a month or two there.
Right. Him with Paul Jones are the two big names that go to the Tri-States.
So I want to go back a couple other matches. I haven't seen the future TV right now, and I don't remember if there's VTRs of any of these matches. Not sure how Flair goes over on Wrestling 2. Sounds like a fun little match there, but Tommy Rich scoring a win over Superstar in a street fight. And then at least they protected Kamata. I'll give him that much. I thought for sure Abby would somehow go over, maybe not by pinfall, but in some way, shape, or form, because how else do you get him to come to town? But double DQ going to get it done here. Tor Kamata against Abdullah the Butcher. What an interesting card, top to bottom.
I mean, how else can that match come out? Because you can't bury Kamata at this point. Mm-hmm. You know Abby's not doing the honors in that match.
Right, no.
So a double DQ is only appropriate. Now, I'm drawing a blank. I had started looking forward, but I'm just drawing a blank on it. Does Tommy Rich win the belt in this match?
All right, guys, I'll break the fourth wall here as Jamie just asked me that question. I had to Google it real quick, Jamie. I truly didn't remember. I knew it was coming, but I didn't know when. And actually, no, apparently the street fight was not for the title, I guess, because Tommy Rich wins, but he doesn't win the title. That title change is going to happen on the next episode of Regional Wrestling.
Oh, there we go. We got a cliffhanger.
Well, we know it's going to happen. We don't know when or how, so we'll stay tuned for that, guys, definitely on the next time around. But right now, we're closing up shop. 2 more weeks, big weeks of TV, new tag team champions crowned, new world heavyweight champion crown, and it's going to be that way for a while.
Yeah, this was like a transitional show here.
Yeah, it certainly was. There's a lot of talent we're seeing starting to move down the card that was getting a big push before. Kevin Von Erich out, and even though you believe he might return to TV, he's never really going to be back in the company per se. And that, that's really unfortunate. Michael Hayes is going to continue his issues with Terry Gordy. We're going to see all sorts of random things take place here, and maybe even some more partners with Hayes down the line. Some interesting choices is right here. But right now we got new tag team champions. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what they do with that next time around, and just a fun show top to bottom.
Oh, absolutely. And we're now into the fall of 1981, and the next 3 months are going to be really good. Now up through Christmas, Georgia's going to be on fire.
Looking forward to it. It certainly had its moments all throughout the year, and yeah, we've got some big things happening, big things coming, guys, and of course the Nature Boys, the world champion.
I'm sorry, but just when you don't think Georgia wrestling can get much better, it will.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, what else can they do? Well, just tune in and find out, guys. We're going to continue on as we're closing out the month of September, moving into October. I can't believe it. We've made it that far, guys, but it is where we are, and we're getting close to that Thanksgiving special night in the Omni. We see that every year. We talked about the 1980 version of that event, and I can't wait to actually cover one here with you, Jamie, in 1981. Lots of great things coming, but guys, hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Yeah, it was another great one, so I really hope everyone did also. And if you have any comments, if Ray or I got anything, any facts that are really out of whack, please let us know.
Yeah, always open to listening to other people's thoughts, opinions, corrections, anything like that. Or if you have results that I couldn't find, send those our way as well. So we look forward to any and all of that and so much more, guys. We just like to hear from you and know that you guys are listening, especially this deep into the episode. So yeah, until next time, guys, yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Jamie, you got anything left you want to say?
The only other thing I'll want to do is, as I usually do, I want to mention our WrestleCopia family members, my boys from the other ship, William Merriweather, Drew Samuels, Michael Herrick, and Chris Spiker. Every week they have a new podcast. This past week they talked music again. I'm not a music guy, but even I ended up listening to it because it was very interesting conversation. And I will be back with the other ship anytime that there is a new WWE. What are they calling them now? Premium live
events. There you go.
I will probably be on the week before the event and the week after the event recapping. So if you like me, tune into the other ship. You have a great time.
Jammie Ward is everywhere, guys. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. Listen to all the great shows here on the WrestleCopia brand, from Gene Jackson's Retro Wrestling Review to Dave Dynasty and the Wrestling Nostalgia Podcast. Of course, the Other Ship Boys and so much more. All the great older shows, like I hate to call the Grenade the oldest of them all, but it is the granddaddy of them all here on the WrestleCopia brand, the Wrestling Memory Grenade. We're in the summer of 1988 right now. Macho Madness running wild. I like it.
And let's not forget Uncle Bob.
No, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Pro Wrestling Academy with Dan Ginnity. We've got so much going on right now, guys, heading into the month of, we're in July of 2024. And just looking forward to continuing to pump out more and more for the listeners here of the WrestleCopia brand. And I want to thank all of you guys, all the listeners, all the patrons, everyone who supports any and all of the shows here that help us keep going financially and just morally. The moral support, we'll take it. So, yeah, until next time, Jammie, I appreciate you spending a couple hours here knocking out 2 more weeks of Georgia goodness in 1981.
Yeah, you know I love to talk Georgia wrestling, right? So anytime you want me, just call.
All right, guys, that'll do it here this week, but we shall return for more Georgia 81, Memphis 85, and UWF 86 very soon. I'm your host, Ray Russell. You can follow me on X at RASSLIN Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/RASSLIN Grenade. And don't forget that $5 all access tier over at Patreon.com/WrestleCopia. And until next time, we'll be back soon with more regional wrestling, where we talk the territories.